Hello guys. Welcome to Soul Fiction. So in this video, we will see what if Naruto had the dual split personality with Goku. Check the summary in the description. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's dive into the story. Chapter 1. Konoha Academy, Morning. Naruto Uzumaki stomped through the wide hall of the Ninja Academy, ignoring the glares from his classmates. He'd overslept again. A couple of teachers passing by muttered something about his usual nonsense, and he sneered under his breath. He refused to acknowledge their judgments. If they wanted him to act nice, tough luck. They never gave him a reason to be nice in the first place. For as long as Naruto could remember, people treated him like some ticking time bomb. Why should he smile back? The corridors bustled with genin hopefuls. Some were anxiously running through last-minute notes on basic ninjutsu. Others seemed calm, already sure of their success. Naruto hated how easily everyone seemed to dismiss him. Fine, so he didn't have a legendary clan name like Uchiha or Hyuga. Didn't mean he was worthless. His fists clenched at his sides as he brushed past a group of kids who whispered behind his back. He found his usual seat in the back row of the large classroom. Half of the chairs stood empty. Everyone else was probably gathered up front for Iruka-sensei's pre-exam talk. Well, Naruto didn't care. He threw himself into his seat, crossed his arms, and stared blankly at the chalkboard, pretending he wasn't listening. Iruka-sensei soon appeared, scanning the classroom with the practiced gaze of a man who taught all sorts of rowdy kids. He cleared his throat. All right, everyone. Settle down. Today's final exam determines whether you graduate. It's not just about reading from a textbook or reciting definitions. You need to demonstrate you can handle real shinobi tasks. No messing around. A few snickers and nervous laughs rippled through the crowd. Naruto rolled his eyes. Real shinobi tasks. He'd been pulling pranks around the village for years, outrunning Chunin whenever they tried to chase him. Was that not proof he had some skill? He tapped his foot impatiently. Iruka's stern voice continued. We'll begin with the basic Bunshin no Jutsu test. Each student will be called into the next room to perform. Anyone who fails the exam. Naruto's chest tightened. The clone jutsu had always given him trouble. He'd tried practicing the night before but ended up snoring halfway through the practice. Not that he lacked motivation. He just found the technique boring, and his chakra never cooperated the way he wanted. Great, he thought bitterly. Another shot at humiliating myself in front of everyone. Iruka started calling names. One by one, students disappeared into the adjacent exam room and returned either cheering or moping. Naruto caught glimpses of his classmates' smirks. Everybody anticipated the Dobi's grand failure. He wanted to fling a chair at them, but that wouldn't help. Instead, he let his imagination cook up fantasies of surprising them all, someday. Then came the name. Naruto Uzumaki. He pushed himself up, ignoring the swirl of anxiety in his gut. This was it. Outside the exam room, he glimpsed Mizuki-sensei standing with Iruka, both waiting expectantly. Naruto gave them the laziest grin he could muster. Hey, let's get this over with. Iruka gave him a serious look. All right, Naruto, Bunshin no Jutsu. Create 3 clones that are passable and stable. Begin whenever you're ready. Naruto formed the hand seals, feeling the churn of chakra in his body. Bunshin no Jutsu. He yelled. He wanted so badly to nail this. He poured everything he had into controlling his chakra flow. A single, sickly-looking clone popped into existence beside him and immediately fizzled. It lay flat on the floor in a faint, wobbling like a half-deflated balloon. Iruka's eyebrows twitched. Naruto's cheeks burned. He clenched his fists. Ah, come on. That should have worked. He tried again, and again it failed, producing only one pitiful clone. No matter how many times he repeated it, he never reached the required 3. By the end of his attempts, the room smelled faintly of burning chakra, and Naruto was panting in frustration. Iruka sighed. Mizuki scratched his chin, glancing at the evaluation chart. This was the exact moment Naruto feared. Another failure. Another worthless day. I'm sorry, Naruto, Iruka began. You can't graduate unless. Something sparked in Naruto's gut. A sudden, inexplicable rush of energy stirred. He didn't know what it was, but it felt like a jolt from somewhere deep inside. For a moment, his vision blurred. He heard a strange, friendly voice in the back of his head. It was warm, urging him softly. Relax, let it flow. Come on, let's give it one more shot. Naruto blinked, confused. That wasn't the Kyuubi's voice. He'd heard the fox's hateful snarls in nightmares before, but this was different, gentle, cheerful. Almost clueless in tone, like it had no idea what tension meant. He swallowed, set his hands into the seal again, and tried to focus. Something changed. His entire body warmed with an intense surge of energy that wasn't quite chakra. It spread through his arms, up his spine, and into his fingertips. He shouted, "Bunshin no Jutsu." Once more. A bright flash blinded him. When Iruka's voice cut through, Naruto realized multiple perfect clones now lined the room. Their forms were crisp, not the usual illusions. He had no recollection of how he'd formed them. They looked too perfect. Mizuki's eyes nearly bulged out. Iruka stood stunned for a couple of seconds, then coughed. Well, that's an improvement, he managed, scribbling something on the pass sheet. Congratulations, Naruto. You pass. Naruto sagged, blinking away a sudden haze. He rubbed the side of his head. Why did it feel like he'd missed a beat? He'd heard a voice, seen a flash, and now he had clones? Before he could overthink, Iruka offered him a shiny new Hite 8. Naruto snatched it, ignoring how unsteady he felt, and strapped it across his forehead. Mizuki watched him with a curious gleam in his eye. Well done. That was unexpected. Keep it up, Naruto. Naruto left the exam room in a hurry. Something felt off, but triumph overshadowed any worries. He'd passed, hadn't he? The other students watched with open-mouthed shock as he declared, "Huh? I'm a ninja now." He plastered on a smug grin, though his knees still felt wobbly from that weird surge moments ago. He was so busy basking in his own victory, he barely noticed Mizuki trailing him just out of sight. Afternoon, streets of Konoha. Naruto trotted through the village with his forehead protector proudly displayed, ignoring the dirty looks from random villagers. He'd grown numb to the whispering. All he cared about was the weight of that metal band on his head. He was a ninja, officially. Still, something nagged at him. How did he manage to conjure all those clones so suddenly? He'd tried for years, and every time it ended in failure. Today, though, that warm voice had whispered in his mind, and then he blacked out for a second. The next thing he knew, clones. Perfect clones. He told himself not to worry about it. The best explanation. Maybe his chakra just finally got it right, right? At the edge of the market district, he smelled something that always made him forget his troubles. Ramen. Specifically, Ichiraku ramen. His stomach rumbled, and he veered toward the small stand. It was quiet now, just after lunchtime. Tucci peered out from behind the counter, smiling in recognition. Hey there, Naruto. Heard you had exams today. How'd it go? Naruto hopped onto a stool, nodding proudly to show off his headband. I'm a genin now. Congratulations. Tucci beam S on me. Special Naruto ramen, coming right up. He threw a glance at his daughter, Ayame, who giggled and hurried to gather ingredients. A few minutes later, Naruto was slurping up noodles at top speed. For a moment, his rude exterior peeled back. He just savored the taste, warm and salty. The best comfort he knew. His mind drifted to the new paths ahead, missions, training, real ninja work. People in this village would have to respect him eventually. Naruto, Tucci asked over the counter, everything all right? You look deep in thought. Naruto shrugged. I'm good. Just thinking about how I aced the exam at the last second. He paused, voice dropping a notch. It felt weird, though. Like my body wasn't listening to me. For a moment, I felt something else inside. Not the fox, but something different. Tucci's face pinched with concern. Maybe you just had an adrenaline rush. Or maybe your determination kicked in at the right moment. Maybe. Naruto forced a grin. Anyway, thanks for the ramen, old man. You're a lifesaver. He slurped down the rest, ignoring the lingering doubt in his stomach, and hopped off the stool. It was time to celebrate in his own way. Maybe find a rooftop to laze around on. Evening, rooftops of Konoha. The sun started dipping below the horizon, painting the sky with orange and pink streaks. Naruto stretched out on his favorite perch above the academy. From here, he could see the Hokage monument. He liked to stare at the stone faces and dream about surpassing them all, showing the entire village that he, Naruto Uzumaki, was greater than any hero they had known. He let out a slow breath and closed his eyes. Finally a genin, he murmured. Screw everyone who said I'd never make it. Pride bubbled in his chest, but it came hand in hand with a flicker of bitterness. A part of him wanted to rub it in every naysayer's face. His eyelids felt heavy after the long day. Maybe he'd just rest for a second. A voice in his head spoke gently. Keep training, let's get stronger. He jerked upright. That was the same voice from the exam. Soft, almost childlike, but brimming with enthusiasm. Who's there? Naruto hissed, scanning the empty rooftop. No answer. Only the breeze. Naruto exhaled slowly, heart pounding. It had to be the fox, right? But the Kyuubi, from what little he'd sensed in nightmares, was all malice and growls. This was different. This was, well, friendly. He glanced around one more time, telling himself he was hearing things. Maybe I'm just tired. He hopped down to the street. Nightfall, Naruto's apartment. Naruto's place was small and messy, a single-bedroom setup with scattered instant ramen cups. He kicked his sandals off at the doorway and flicked on the lights. In the kitchen corner, leftover cups wobbled in a precarious tower. He didn't care. Housekeeping was at the bottom of his priority list. Yawning, he set his brand new headband on the table, stared at it, and smirked. He was so ready to see the looks on people's faces tomorrow. Especially the stuck-up kids in his class who thought he was beneath them. He rummaged for a moment in a cupboard until he fished out a dusty scroll Uruka had given him on chakra control exercises. Might as well try to keep that weird synergy going, he thought. He plopped onto the floor, unrolled the scroll, and started reading about visualizing chakra flows. Usually, he'd skip these details because they bored him. But that strange surge during the exam had him curious. If he replicated it, he'd be unstoppable. Maybe he'd go beyond just basic clones. Maybe he could even surpass the Uchiha genius, Sasuke, with minimal effort. The idea made him grin. But after a few minutes, he could hardly keep his eyes open. The day's exhaustion caught up with him. His head sagged forward, and he drifted off to the sound of the quiet night. He dreamed of bright, golden light swirling in a vast emptiness. A silhouette of someone standing tall, spiky hair, wearing an orange gi. The figure grinned at him, raising a hand as though in greeting. The warmth in that dream felt unbelievably comforting, like it was urging him to keep going. He tried to get closer, to see the person's face. He woke with a start, gasping. The room was still dark, just past midnight. That image was so vivid. Spiky hair that wasn't like his own, but somewhat similar color, maybe. Or was it darker? He shook his head, blinked, and slowly got up, cursing under his breath for sleeping on the floor. His back ached. That dream was weird, he muttered. Yet for some reason, he felt calmer. Like he'd glimpsed something safe and kind. That was definitely not the kind of dream he had about the fox. Could there be another presence inside him? That line of thought instantly annoyed him. He was Naruto Uzumaki. He didn't share his body with weird ghosts or whatever. The fox was enough. No more. He stumbled to his bed, resolving to sleep properly. Tomorrow, the teams would be announced. He couldn't afford to be a zombie in front of his new sensei or the classmates he had to endure. Just as he was about to drift off again, a faint voice echoed in his mind. Let's do our best, okay? Naruto's eyes shot open. Shut up, he whispered at nothing, annoyance dripping from his voice. If there was someone in his head, they'd better keep quiet. He was done with mysteries for the day. Morning, academy classroom. Naruto burst into the classroom with his usual swagger, taking a moment to bask in the stares of his classmates. He wore his Hite-8 with an air of triumph. Even though some kids scowled, whispering that it was a fluke, he didn't care. A pass was a pass. He flopped into a chair beside the aisle, ignoring the suspicious glances from a certain raven-haired boy by the window. Sasuke was already in his seat, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Naruto considered throwing a taunt his way but decided it was too early in the morning. Maybe later, once the day got dull, he could start a fight or two. From a few rows up, Sakura Haruno glanced over her shoulder. She looked surprised to see Naruto wearing the leaf headband. She turned to whisper something to Ino Yamanaka, who sat next to her. Ino's eyebrows rose, and the pair of them started giggling about some inside joke. Naruto clenched his teeth. He wasn't sure if they were laughing at him or something else. He was always the punchline in this place. But then, he caught a glimpse of Hinata Hyuga in the corner, shyly peeking at him. She wore her usual pale jacket and tried to hide behind her short dark hair. When their eyes met, she blushed and quickly looked away. Odd. Naruto shrugged it off. He had never understood why Hinata acted so skittish. Iruka arrived to finalize the team distributions. He rattled off names in quick succession. Team 7 will be Naruto Uzumaki, Sasuke Uchiha, and Sakura Haruno. Your Junin sensei is Kakashi Hitaki. Naruto smirked, ignoring the outraged groan from Sakura. Sure, he wasn't thrilled about being paired with his so-called rival, Sasuke, and a girl who swooned over said rival, but a part of him savored the challenge. If he overshadowed Sasuke on missions, that'd wipe the smug look off the Uchiha's face for good. The newly formed teams moved to separate corners of the room, waiting for their respective sensei. Team 7 settled near a window. Naruto lounged in a seat, arms behind his head, only half listening to Sakura's complaints about wanting to be with Sasuke alone. What did you say, Sakura? He drawled, bored, jealous you're not the sole apple of Sasuke's eye. Sakura's cheeks flared. Shut up, Naruto, I didn't ask to be stuck with you. Sasuke cut in, voice low. Focus, you two. We don't even know who this Kakashi is. Don't waste energy on stupid bickering. He glanced at Naruto with mild contempt. Though I doubt you'll ever stop being an idiot's upper lip curled. Usually, that kind of insult would make him explode, but ironically, he felt oddly calm. The memory of that dream last night or that fleeting voice in the exam room, something inside him told him to hold back. Instead, he just laughed in Sasuke's face. Say what you want, I don't care. Sakura looked surprised that he didn't lash out. Sasuke frowned, as if unsure how to handle a Naruto who didn't scream and jump to fight. Naruto had to admit, it was oddly satisfying to see them momentarily confused. Time dragged. Minutes turned into an hour. No sign of Kakashi. By the time the door finally slid open, many other teams had already met and left with their sensei. Kakashi strolled in, face hidden behind a mask, looking lazily amused. Yo, he greeted, eyes smiling. Team 7, I presume? Sorry I'm late. Ran into a black cat, had to take a detour. Naruto rolled his eyes. He could already tell this guy was either a total slacker or a liar, possibly both. Meet me on the roof, Kakashi said casually before he walked right back out. Sakura huffed. On the roof? Sasuke merely shrugged. Naruto muttered something about sensei being weird, then followed them up the stairs. Academy rooftop. A breeze swept across the roof as Kakashi leaned against the railing, reading from a small book. He looked up only when the three new genin approached. So, he said, snapping the book shut, let's do quick introductions. Your likes, dislikes, dreams, stuff like that. Sakura glanced at Naruto, then at Sasuke, maybe hoping they'd speak first. Naruto glared right back, deciding to go if no one else would. Name's Naruto Uzumaki, he said, trying to sound as confident as possible. I like ramen, and I like proving I'm not some worthless brat like everyone thinks. I dislike being told what to do. He shot a glare at Sasuke. And I hate it when people look down on me. My dream is to become Hokage, or something bigger. So big that everyone who ever spat on me has to bow their heads in shame. Kakashi's single visible eye crinkled, like he was gauging Naruto's tone. Hokage, huh? That's quite a goal. Sasuke went next, basically rattling off a few lines about resurrecting his clan's honor and destroying a certain someone. Typical broodiness. Naruto stifled a bored yawn. Sakura spoke last, mentioning that her likes and dreams. Well, Naruto tuned out when she drifted into talk about Sasuke this, Sasuke that. Kakashi nodded politely but didn't comment. After a moment, he said, well, good to know your basics. We'll have our first training exercise tomorrow morning. It's a survival exercise, but I'll warn you, the failure rate is pretty high. Naruto raised a brow. Failure rate? We already graduated, didn't we? Kakashi's tone grew mockingly serious. We'll see about that. Meet me at the training ground at 5 a.m. Don't eat breakfast, or you'll puke. You're dismissed. The Junin promptly vanished in a swirl of leaves, leaving them alone on the roof. Naruto clicked his tongue. He hated the idea of skipping breakfast. But if the test was as tough as Kakashi made it sound, maybe it was best to follow instructions. Not that he was thrilled. Sasuke wordlessly turned to leave. Sakura lingered a second, glancing at Naruto as if she wanted to say something, then apparently thought better of it and hurried after Sasuke. Naruto shrugged. Let them do whatever. He had his own plans, mostly, to check out that strange surge of power again. Training field by the stream. Dusk Naruto wandered to a secluded part of the village near a small stream. He often came here to be alone. The water trickled softly, reflecting the last of the day's light. Orange skies dimmed overhead. This was perfect for some personal training. He wanted to at least replicate that energy from the exam. He dropped his backpack, rolling his shoulders. All right, he muttered, let's see what we can do. He formed a simple seal and tried to summon a clone. The same old weak illusions popped out. No improvement. It irritated him. Come on, he yelled at himself, focusing harder. I did it before, right? It was easy. But the more he forced it, the more the clones turned out pathetic. No bright flash like in the exam. No sudden wave of unstoppable power. He cursed under his breath, wanting to punch a tree. Why couldn't he get that feeling back? In the quiet of the training ground, the voice from the dream drifted to him again. You're stressing too much, relax, pal. Naruto spun around, scanning the area. No one. Great, he hissed, I'm talking to myself. I've officially lost it. He steadied his breathing, then closed his eyes. Instead of pushing and forcing his chakra to mold into clones, he tried to remember that warmth. That sense of kindness, of open-hearted effort. That's what it felt like in the exam, right? But as he tried, frustration took over again. He was too used to channeling anger to get results. Anger was comfortable, reliable. People always made him angry, so it fueled him. This gentle approach felt unnatural. When nothing happened, he let out a loud growl and kicked a rock, sending it skipping across the stream. Stupid voice. Stupid weird power. He considered calling it a night, but just as he turned to grab his things, a sudden shift rippled through his body. Naruto's knees buckled, and a haze of dizziness overtook him. He blinked once, twice, then everything went black. His eyes opened again, yet they weren't exactly his own. They seemed a bit wider, the expression softer. His posture relaxed. He smiled at nothing in particular, a warm, curious smile. Without saying a word, he raised a hand, palm open toward the water. A faint crackle of energy danced around his fingertips, golden and vibrant. It was unlike normal chakra, more like pure condensed light. He tilted his head, letting out a small laugh. He seemed delighted. Then, in a single fluid movement, he flicked his wrist. A tiny bolt of ki shot out, skimming the surface of the stream and sending up a splash of water. The sound echoed across the clearing. If anyone had been watching, they'd have been stunned to see Naruto so calm and gentle, as if this was second nature. This wasn't the rude, brash kid the village knew. He tried again, and another ki burst formed. This time, the energy ball hovered a few inches above his palm before he gently tossed it in the air like a child playing with a balloon. The corners of his mouth curled with excitement. But the entire time, his eyes looked different. Almost kind, unburdened. And not a shred of memory or recognition of Naruto's usual frustrations existed in that gaze. Then, as quickly as it arrived, the phenomenon faded. The boy's eyes fluttered. He gasped as if he'd been underwater. His body lurched, and he stumbled forward, grabbing at his chest. The ball of ki vanished. Disoriented, he glanced around. It was Naruto again. But the momentary occupant, that second soul, was gone. What? Naruto panted, looking wildly at his surroundings. The stream's surface still rippled from some disturbance. He noticed the water swirling in an odd pattern. He could sense that something had happened, but he had no memory of it. His heart thumped loudly in his ears. He forced himself to breathe normally, but his hands trembled. He'd blacked out. Again. Had it been seconds or minutes? He didn't know, but the evidence was right there. The water looked like someone had blasted it with a water jutsu. And he had no clue how. Fear mingled with a strange excitement. Maybe the voice was real, and it had taken over? He didn't like feeling this powerless over himself, but if that was the force that had helped him pass the exam, then maybe it wasn't all bad. He grabbed his backpack, ignoring the swirl of questions in his mind, and ran home. He needed sleep before tomorrow's test. Tomorrow, he'd demand some answers the old man Hokage, or Iruka, or anyone who could shed light on this weird phenomenon. But for now, his gut twisted in equal parts confusion and awe. Next day, Training Ground 7, Don Naruto arrived first, despite Kakashi's warning about being there at 5. He hadn't slept much, and his nerves were on edge. The place was empty except for the quiet rustle of leaves. He looked around for a hint of his new teammates but saw no one. Typical. He flopped down on a nearby log to wait, arms folded in annoyance. He replayed the blackout from last night. The initial panic he'd felt was now overshadowed by fascination. If that calm, powerful presence reappeared during battle, maybe it would help him crush this so-called survival test. At the same time, he hated that it made him lose control. Relying on someone else, even if it was inside his own head, felt humiliating. Sakura eventually showed up, yawning. When she spotted Naruto, she raised an eyebrow. "You're early?" He shrugged, feigning disinterest. "I'm not as lazy as people think." She gave him a suspicious look, but said nothing. A few minutes later, Sasuke sauntered in, hands in his pockets, eyes scanning the field. "Where's Kakashi?" Naruto snorted. "Probably sleeping in a tree. Guy's a flake." They waited. And waited. The sun rose higher. An hour passed, maybe 2, before Kakashi finally strolled onto the field with the same laid-back posture. "Good morning," he greeted. "I see you took my advice and didn't eat." Naruto's stomach growled in protest. He scowled. Sakura and Sasuke didn't look thrilled either. Kakashi set a small alarm clock on a stump. "You have until this clock rings at noon to take these bells from me." He dangled 2 silver bells in front of them. "If you fail to get a bell, you go back to the academy. Also, only 2 bells. Meaning at least one of you ends up tied to a log without lunch. That's the rule." Sakura looked aghast. "But there are 3 of us. One won't get a bell at all." Kakashi's mask crinkled. "Precisely. Show me what you've got." Naruto's eyes narrowed. He wasn't about to lose. Starving or not, he wanted to make Kakashi regret ever being late. He felt that deep, angry hunger for recognition. Maybe if he tapped into it, that strange power might surface again. Or maybe, he thought bitterly, it'll just pick the worst moment to appear, and I won't even remember. Without warning, Naruto charged forward, kunai in hand. "I'm not gonna let you treat me like a second-rate shinobi," he snarled. Kakashi stepped aside smoothly, deflecting the kunai with minimal effort. "Going straight in? That's a bit reckless," he remarked. Naruto grit his teeth, flipping backward. He unleashed a volley of shuriken. Kakashi vanished and reappeared behind him in a blink. "Too slow," the Junin whispered. Then Naruto felt a light push at the back of his head, just enough to send him sprawling. Embarrassed, he leapt to his feet, ignoring Sakura's stifled giggle from the sidelines. He tried again, going for a direct clash. Every move he made, Kakashi countered effortlessly. The Junin barely had to try. Anger flared inside Naruto. He rushed again, determined to land at least one hit. But all he earned was a condescending sigh. Kakashi snatched Naruto's wrist mid-attack and flung him into the nearby shrubbery. "If you fight without a plan, I'll see right through you," he said. Naruto slammed into the ground, grass scraping his arms. For a moment, the edges of his vision flickered. He heard that voice again, softly. Wait, we should do this carefully." The blackness threatened to engulf him for a second. No, Naruto thought fiercely, pushing the sensation away. He didn't want that other persona to take all the glory. This was his fight, his test. He forced himself to stand, ignoring the dizziness. Kakashi had turned his attention elsewhere, probably expecting an ambush from Sasuke or Sakura. Naruto took the chance to retreat behind a large tree, catching his breath. "I can handle this," he whispered. "I don't need you." He peeked around the trunk in time to see Sasuke engage Kakashi in a flurry of taijutsu. Sakura stood back, watching for an opening. Naruto's mouth twisted in a scowl. Fine, let them fight. He'd plan his own approach, something cunning. He refused to be overshadowed by Sasuke. From his vantage, he watched the movements closely. Kakashi's stance was loose but precise. He was toying with them. Then Sasuke flung a volley of shuriken with pinpoint accuracy, forcing Kakashi to dodge. That gave Naruto a split second to rush in from behind. It was a perfect pincer. If only he coordinated with Sasuke. But Naruto refused to call out. He wanted credit for the takedown. He sprang forward, gathering chakra in his fists. He pictured that exam moment, that unstoppable surge, hoping to replicate it. Instead, his chakra flared unevenly, and Kakashi twisted away, letting Naruto's punch smash into the ground, leaving a small crater. Dirt flew everywhere. Fast, Kakashi murmured. But not enough. He brought his hand up to form a quick seal. Earth style. Hidden mole jutsu. He disappeared into the ground with unnatural speed. Naruto froze. Where did he? A hand burst from below him, grabbing his ankle. In the next moment, Kakashi emerged halfway from the earth, yanking Naruto downward until only his head stuck out of the dirt. Naruto struggled, but the soil held him tightly, and he couldn't pull free. Sasuke glanced over but kept his distance, scowling as if this was exactly what he expected from Naruto's recklessness. Kakashi stood up fully, dusting himself off. You'll never catch me with that impatience. Also, note that you three might want to consider teamwork at some point. Naruto spat dirt from his mouth, thoroughly humiliated. Teamwork? TCH. Don't count on me working with that stuck-up jerk and that fangirl. Kakashi's eye narrowed. As you wish, then you'll end up with nothing. For a fleeting moment, Naruto thought he felt that swirl of dizziness again. He clenched his jaw, refusing to let it happen. If that weird presence took over, he'd probably just black out and wake up who knows where, with no memory. That was the last thing he wanted in front of Sasuke and Sakura. Kakashi, evidently bored of waiting, vanished in another burst of movement. Sasuke followed, determined to catch him. Sakura, left behind, rushed to Naruto's side to help him get out of the dirt. She knelt down, grabbing his shoulders. Don't move. You'll hurt yourself, she said, surprisingly gentle. Let me loosen this up. Naruto scowled. Thanks, but I can handle. Shut it, she snapped, cheeks flushing. I'm only doing this because we need every advantage if we're gonna pass. After some effort, she loosened enough dirt for Naruto to yank himself free. He stood up, trying to maintain some pride in front of her, but it was hard when you've just been literally planted in the ground. Her eyes flicked around, searching for Sasuke or Kakashi. Listen, Naruto, maybe we should find Sasuke and come up with some plan. We only have a few hours, and Kakashi-sensei isn't playing around. If we keep going solo, we'll never. Fine, Naruto muttered, hating to admit it, but if we team up, I call the shots. Sakura gave him an incredulous look. What? No. Why would you? Let's just find Sasuke first. Naruto grit his teeth, but followed her. They dashed through the training field, passing clusters of trees and small clearings. They found Sasuke perched on a branch, scanning the area warily. When they approached, he glared at them. Finally realized you can't do it alone, he said coldly, addressing Naruto in particular. You're wasting my time. Naruto bristled. You're the one up in a tree, sitting pretty. I actually tried to fight. Whatever. If we want to pass, we need a strategy, ing Naruto's bite. He quickly outlined a plan where Sakura distracted Kakashi with illusions. Sasuke cornered him with shuriken, and Naruto rushed in for a grab on the bells when Kakashi's attention was split. It sounded decent. Naruto found himself grudgingly impressed, but he refused to praise Sasuke aloud. They set it into motion. Sakura found Kakashi near a clearing, reading the tiny orange book again, apparently ignoring them. She used a basic genjutsu to make leaves swirl around him, hopefully disorienting him. Sasuke sprang into action from the right, unleashing a hail of small projectiles that forced Kakashi to dodge left. That put him in the path of Naruto, who lunged from behind a bush, reaching for the bells with a triumphant grin. For a second, it looked like they had him. But Kakashi pivoted gracefully, raising his book to block the bell cords from Naruto's grab. Naruto felt his fingertips brush one bell. So close. Then Kakashi whirled behind him, hooking Naruto's arm with a deft twist. Pain flared in his elbow. Too slow, Kakashi said, voice calm. You improved a bit, working together. But you hesitated for just a moment, each of you. That's enough. Before Naruto could retort, Kakashi tossed him aside again. He turned to Sasuke and Sakura, who were already adjusting their positions. The next minute was a blur of motion. Kakashi dodged every coordinated strike like he was predicting them in advance. Meanwhile, the clock on the stump ticked away. After a few more failed attempts, the three genin pulled back, panting, exchanging frustrated looks. Time was running out. Naruto's stomach growled in a way that made him feel nauseous. He hated how hungry he was. And he despised how effortlessly Kakashi made them look like amateurs. Eventually, the alarm rang. Noon. Kakashi reappeared with a swirl of leaves, still holding the bells. None of them had managed to claim a single one. He eyed each of them silently, then walked to the stump where the clock beeped. Time's up. Seems you've all failed to secure a bell. Sakura looked crestfallen. Sasuke clenched his fists in silent rage. Naruto spat dirt. That's not fair. It's a 3-on-1, and you're on a whole different level. How are we supposed to? Kakashi held up a hand. The answer is teamwork. That's the entire point of this exercise. If you'd truly worked together and combined your strengths, you might have had a shot. But you were too busy competing or acting on your own. His gaze landed on Naruto. Especially you. You fight like you're alone in the world. Naruto's face twisted in defiance. I am alone, he snarled. No one ever gives a damn about me, so why should I rely on them? I can handle things just fine on my own. Silence fell. Sakura and Sasuke exchanged uneasy glances. Kakashi closed his eyes for a moment. That's a dangerous mindset for a ninja. Perhaps I should send you all back to the academy. But, he paused, eyeing them carefully. I'll give you one more chance. Since you're half dead from hunger, you can eat lunch. However, he pointed at Naruto. Naruto gets no food. Sakura gasped. But, no buts, Kakashi said firmly. That's the punishment for his reckless approach. If anyone shares their food with him, you all fail immediately. Understood? Kakashi left them alone with a bento box. Sasuke opened the box, and he and Sakura each took portions. Naruto's stomach rumbled as the mouthwatering smell hit him. He felt faint from the morning's exertion and the short night's sleep. He tried to keep his face stony, but it was hard not to stare at the rice and fish they were eating. Sakura took a small bite, then hesitated. She looked at Naruto's miserable expression. This is messed up, she whispered. He'll be weak when we go back into the test. Sasuke glanced sideways. He brought it on himself by charging in alone. But if he's hungry, he'll be useless. The next stage of the test might be even harder. Naruto scowled. Don't you dare pity me. I can handle it. I don't need your help. Sakura shut the bento box, exhaling sharply. Idiot. I'm not doing this for you. I just don't want to fail. She picked up a small piece of rice and offered it to Naruto with trembling hands. Sasuke gave a reluctant nod. Eat, he said quietly, before Kakashi comes back. If we get caught, we fail. But if you can't fight, we fail anyway. Might as well take the risk. Naruto's pride screamed at him to refuse. But his body's hunger overwhelmed that stubbornness. He quickly snatched the food from Sakura, cramming it into his mouth. He tried to ignore the small flush on her cheeks as she passed him another piece. Sasuke offered him a bit of fish. Naruto swallowed, feeling a strange warmth that wasn't from the meal. They were helping him. Willingly. A faint pang of gratitude hit him, though he tried to bury it under his usual rude facade. Suddenly, smoke billowed around them. Kakashi reappeared, shouting, "You broke the rule." Naruto's heart pounded. He scrambled up, half expecting Kakashi to declare their failure, but the Junin just fixed them with a fierce stare. Sakura, Sasuke, you disobeyed my direct command. Why? Sasuke answered calmly, because letting him starve is pointless if you want us to function as a team. Naruto waited for the hammer to drop, but Kakashi's gaze softened. You pass. Sakura blinked. Wait, we pass? Kakashi nodded. In the ninja world, those who break the rules are scum, but those who abandon their friends are worse than scum. You've shown that you at least understand that concept. Congratulations. From here on, Team 7 is official. Naruto's jaw dropped. Sakura almost squealed with relief, and Sasuke gave a satisfied grunt. A million emotions churned in Naruto's head. Embarrassment, shock, faint gratitude that they risked failing for his sake. He scowled to hide it, crossing his arms. Huh, so that's it? Kakashi's eyes smiled. Yep. Meet me tomorrow for your first mission assignment. Then, in a swirl of leaves, he was gone again. They stood in silence. Finally, Sakura sighed in relief, slumping to the ground. Sasuke hopped onto a log, arms folded. Naruto stared off into the distance. He couldn't help the mixed feelings swirling in his chest. He wasn't used to relying on anyone. It felt foreign, maybe even a little nice. Not that he'd ever admit it aloud. He heard that voice again, just a whisper in the back of his mind. They're good people, yeah? We can trust them, right? His eyes flicked around, but obviously no one else heard it. He clenched his hands into fists, frustration building. Shut up, he muttered quietly, though it sounded less forceful than before. If that presence was in there, maybe it wasn't his enemy. Late afternoon, edge of the village. After they parted ways, Naruto wandered toward the village gates, needing to clear his head. The day had been an emotional roller coaster. First, he nearly failed the bell test, then he unexpectedly passed because his teammates helped him. And overshadowing everything was that strange presence, lurking behind his eyes, stepping in sometimes when he blacked out. He kicked a stray pebble along the road, recalling the moment last night by the stream. He was sure that wasn't normal chakra, and it wasn't the fox's sinister presence. So what was it? Another occupant in his body? The idea made him scowl. Being a Jinchuriki was bad enough. Did he have to share space with some other unknown being too? Nearby, he spotted a familiar figure with pale eyes. Hinata Hyuga was returning from some training session, probably. She hesitated when she saw him. He considered ignoring her, but she offered a small bow. See, congratulations on passing the exam, she said softly. Naruto gave a curt nod. Yeah. A flicker of disappointment crossed her face at his short reply, but she nodded again. I heard you were at least, that's what people said. That your clones were perfect. He stiffened. Was that rumor still going around? They were all right. Nothing special. She clasped her hands nervously. Well, I'm proud of you, truly. He turned away, unsure why her gentle tone made him uncomfortable. Whatever, he grumbled. See ya. As he walked off, he glanced back just once, catching the hurt expression on her face. A tiny pang of guilt stabbed at him, but he shoved it aside. Why should he care? She was just another person who'd probably eventually shun him like everyone else. Yet the voice in his head said softly, that was mean, buddy. Naruto rolled his eyes and quickened his pace. He didn't need a second conscience making him feel bad about being himself. Night. Naruto's apartment. He dropped onto his bed without bothering to clean up. Tomorrow would begin real missions with Team 7. Maybe they'd just get lame chores, but eventually, they'd handle something serious. Something that let him show off. He closed his eyes, images flitting through his mind. Sasuke's scowl. Sakura's worried face, that moment in the training field when he nearly touched the bell. He remembered the warm sensation in his mind that threatened to surge forward and take control. Who are you? He asked silently. No answer came, of course. He sighed, letting his mind drift. Sooner or later, he'd get to the bottom of it. He drifted into a restless sleep. His dreams were once again filled with that spiky-haired figure, but this time, it looked more tangible. A silhouette with a broad grin. Naruto felt an odd mix of annoyance and comfort. This presence might be unstoppable if unleashed in a real fight, yet it forced Naruto to black out. There was no telling what might happen if it seized control at the wrong time. Still, amid all his confusion, a part of him felt, strangely less alone. And that was terrifying in its own right. Chapter 2 Morning, Training Field 7. Naruto huffed as he stood in the cool morning air, arms crossed. He hated early starts, but Kakashi insisted on them. Sakura was to his right, carefully stretching her legs. Sasuke was perched on a small wooden post, eyes half-lidded as though bored with the world. Kakashi was nowhere to be seen. Naruto scowled at the empty space where their sensei should have been. He's late again, he muttered. Figures. Sakura sighed. He's probably got another dumb excuse ready. Sasuke shifted on the post. I don't care about his excuses. We're wasting time. Naruto refused to admit out loud that he agreed with Sasuke. Instead, he kicked a stray pebble, ignoring the flicker of exasperation in Sakura's gaze. His night had been restless again. The memory of that second voice in his head lingered. More than once, he'd caught himself drifting into daydreams where that presence manifested, only to shake it off. He couldn't stand the idea that some unknown goody two-shoes persona could hijack his body whenever it wanted. Finally, Kakashi arrived in a blur, offering his usual excuse about a lost pet or an old lady crossing the street. None of them bothered reacting. He smiled behind his mask, snapping his little orange book shut. "Good morning, my cute students," he said lightly. "Ready for missions?" Naruto rolled his eyes, ready to do something besides stand around. Kakashi's visible eye curved in amusement. "Then let's go. The Hokage has some tasks for you." At the missions desk, Konoha the third Hokage sat behind a stack of paperwork, glancing up as Kakashi and the three genin approached. Naruto's eyes swept over the lines of other newly formed teams waiting for assignments, most of them equally bored. Missions were doled out based on rank and the village's needs, which usually meant a lot of low-level chores for fresh genin. The Hokage offered a mild smile. "Ah, Team 7. Good timing. Let's see," he lifted a small slip of paper. "There's a request for help weeding a garden on the east side of the village. Another for dog walking near the Inuzuka compound. Or you can assist at the marketplace with carrying produce. Which one?" Naruto felt his stomach twist with annoyance. He'd just become an official ninja, and he was stuck with chores like this. He opened his mouth to protest, but Kakashi gave him a warning glance. Sasuke shrugged in indifference. Sakura at least tried to look professional, but Naruto saw the flicker of disappointment on her face too. "We'll take the garden weeding mission," Kakashi said casually. "Thanks, Lord Hokage." "Are you kidding me?" Naruto burst out the moment they left the mission desk. "Garden duty? We're shinobi. We should be out there catching criminals or something." Kakashi flipped open his orange book. "That's how it works for new genin. D-rank missions build teamwork and discipline." Naruto ground his teeth. He stalked ahead, ignoring the pointed stares from the villagers as they passed. The tension from being assigned menial tasks roiled inside him. He was sick of feeling like a glorified handyman. He wanted real combat. Sasuke said nothing, but a thin line of frustration etched his mouth. Sakura tried to cheer them up, pointing out that all rookie teams started with chores, but Naruto barely listened. He was too busy dwelling on how he'd prove himself in a real fight, without blacking out and letting that random persona reap all the glory. East Side Garden. Midday rows of unruly weeds towered between lines of vegetables. An elderly woman stood at the edge of the yard, waving a crooked cane. "Be sure not to step on the cabbage," she warned, "and don't break any of the fences." Naruto grabbed a small hoe and squatted down. The sun beat on his head, making sweat trickle down his temples. This was the least glamorous thing he could imagine. He heard Sakura politely chatting with the old woman, assuring her they'd do a great job. Sasuke worked methodically, yanking weeds without complaint. Naruto glared at a particularly stubborn root, jabbing at it. "This is stupid," he muttered. "I didn't become a ninja for farming." Sasuke shot him a glance. "Stop whining. We'll finish faster if you just focus." Naruto slammed the hoe into the ground harder than necessary. "Don't tell me what to do." Their bickering continued under their breath until Sakura stepped between them. "We can at least get this done without fighting," she snapped. "I'm tired of you two glaring at each other all day." Naruto forced himself to look away, scowling. She had a point, he guessed. He turned back to the weeds, trying to yank them up in one go. He couldn't help picturing the old woman's fence as if it were a training dummy he wanted to break in half. The day dragged on with sweat, dirt, and frustration. Late afternoon, village streets. They finished the mission, reported back, and received their meager payment. Kakashi told them they could rest. "Tomorrow, we'll see what's available," he said. Naruto nearly growled. "More weeds?" Kakashi shrugged. "Might be weeds, might be walking dogs. Who knows?" "That's it," Naruto exploded. "Look, sensei, we need something better. We can handle a real mission. You saw our potential in the bell test." Sasuke scoffed. "You almost got yourself killed in that test." Naruto ignored him, focusing on Kakashi. Come on, we're not gonna learn anything from chores. Kakashi's eye flickered with mild amusement. Your whining won't change the rules, but if you're really that eager, go talk to the Hokage yourself. I'm sure he'll remind you how the system works. Naruto didn't need to be told twice. He spun on his heel and marched off toward the Hokage tower. Sakura made a face and followed, muttering about how he never knew when to quit, while Sasuke trailed behind silently. Hokage's office, they found the third Hokage enjoying a pipe, looking tired but serene. Hands clenched. The old man raised an eyebrow. Naruto, is something the matter? Lord Hokage, Naruto said, trying not to sound too confrontational, why won't you give us a real mission? I'm sick of these chores. Kakashi arrived in time to hear it, but he hung back at the door, letting them speak. Sasuke stood off to the side with arms folded, and Sakura chewed her lip nervously. The Hokage exhaled a thin trail of smoke. You're all genin, the Hokage replied kindly. Most new teams spend weeks or months completing D-rank assignments. It's part of building basic skills and trust. Naruto's chest tightened. Isn't that a waste of time for people who actually have talent? He glared at Sasuke. I can't speak for that guy, but... Sasuke's eyes narrowed. Watch your mouth. Kakashi cleared his throat, stepping in. Lord Hokage, maybe a small C-rank mission would do them good, if only to shake things up. Otherwise, Naruto here might try to stage a riot in the village. The Hokage studied Naruto's determined scowl. After a long moment, he chuckled softly. All right. I suppose I have a suitable C rank. It involves escorting a certain individual to the land of waves. Are you willing to take it on? Naruto bristled with excitement. He didn't even need details. Yes, we'll do it. Sasuke's face remained impassive, but there was a flicker of interest in his eyes. Sakura looked uncertain but didn't protest. Kakashi offered a lazy salute. Thank you, Lord Hokage. We'll handle it. Tazuna, the client, was summoned, a grizzled old bridge builder who looked Naruto up and down skeptically. These kids are my escorts. Tazuna mumbled, clearly unimpressed. They look like a bunch of brats. Naruto's brow twitched. He forced himself not to snap at the old man. The Hokage coughed gently. They may be brats, but they're perfectly capable. Kakashi is a skilled Junin. Tazuna shrugged. Fine. Let's get going. My bridge won't build itself. Konoha Gate. Next morning Naruto arrived surprisingly early, a small pack slung over his shoulders. He felt a thrill of anticipation coursing through him. Finally, a real mission outside the village. This was his chance to prove he wasn't just some troublemaker. He spotted Tazuna sipping from a bottle and muttering about meeting the kids. Again. Sakura and Sasuke showed up next, each carrying basic supplies. Kakashi appeared last, though at least he was on time. Well, everyone ready? He asked. We've got a bit of a walk ahead. They set off down the main road leading away from Konoha. For the first few hours, conversation was sparse. Tazuna occasionally complained about the heat or teased Naruto about being short. Naruto gave him a snarky retort each time, which seemed to amuse the old man more than anger him. Sakura tried to start a conversation with Sasuke, but he responded with one-word answers. Kakashi read his book as he ambled along, barely glancing up at the path. Eventually, Naruto's impatience got the better of him. So, Tazuna, he said, why do you need an escort to build a bridge, anyway? Seems like a pretty low-risk job. Tazuna's gaze shifted. Well, it's complicated. There are some people who don't want the bridge completed. Sasuke shot him a sharp look. People who'd be willing to attack you. That's right, Tazuna replied. But I was told I could only afford a C-rank mission, so I'm stuck with you kids. Naruto's temper flared. Hey, watch it, old man. We can handle ourselves. Tazuna just shrugged. We'll see. Forest path, late afternoon. The road wound through a dense forest. The shadows stretched long as the sun dipped lower. Kakashi's eyes scanned the tree line periodically, and Naruto could sense a growing tension. They rounded a bend. Ahead, a muddy puddle lay across the dirt path. It looked out of place, given the day had been dry. Kakashi walked on, posture relaxed. Sasuke tensed ever so slightly. Sakura slowed her steps, noticing the same odd detail. Naruto, oblivious, nearly stepped in the puddle before Kakashi's voice rang out. Get back. Two masked figures erupted from the puddle, chains whirling. They lunged for Kakashi, wrapping the chain around him in a blink and yanking. Naruto's eyes went wide as Kakashi's body appeared to shred into pieces. Blood splattered the ground. Sakura screamed. Sasuke cursed and launched himself at the masked attackers. Naruto froze for a heartbeat, horror slamming into him. Kakashi had just been ripped apart, his sensei, gone in an instant. His mind reeled. Then fury lit up inside him, churning with the impulse to fight or run. Or, let that second presence take over. Sasuke managed to tangle one attacker with a kunai. The other charged at Tazuna. Naruto felt himself lurch forward, even as his brain screamed that he had no plan. He swung wildly at the enemy, only to be slapped aside by a spiked gauntlet. Pain jolted across his jaw, he staggered. Sakura darted in front of Tazuna, her hands shaking on a kunai. But the attacker hissed, flipping the chain to snag her. Naruto's heart pounded. Adrenaline roared in his ears. Another worthless meltdown, he was failing again. Then a quiet voice in his head. Let me handle this. Blackness tugged at him. He fought it for a second, not wanting to surrender control, but the fear of seeing his teammates killed overwhelmed him. Fine, do it, he thought hazily. Just save them. His consciousness flickered. When his eyes refocused, the tension in his body was gone, replaced by a calm, steady power. His stance shifted subtly. His gaze turned warm yet focused. The masked ninja pivoted to face him, expecting an easy target. Naruto, no, Goku, smiled in a friendly way. Stop, or you'll regret it, he said, voice losing its usual harsh edge. The attacker laughed, lunging in. Goku sidestepped effortlessly, landing a precise chop to the ninja's wrist. The chain rattled to the ground. With an almost playful nudge, Goku tapped the attacker's chest, sending the masked ninja skidding back across the dirt. The second masked ninja, momentarily free from Sasuke's interference, charged. Goku didn't even look flustered. He ducked low, grabbed the chain, and yanked hard. The masked figure flipped overhead and crashed into a tree. Sasuke and Sakura stared in disbelief. This was Naruto's body, but not Naruto's temperament. The movements were too smooth. No wasted motions. No curses or shouts. Just a calm efficiency. Tazuna gaped, bottle almost slipping from his hand. A swirl of leaves nearby revealed Kakashi, very much alive. He glanced at Goku Naruto with narrowed eyes. So you noticed the puddle too, Sasuke. Good job. He looked at his own clone's shredded remains on the ground. I let them think they got me. Sasuke exhaled, stepping back, weapon still drawn. Sakura dropped her kunai, relief flooding her face. Goku Naruto looked toward Kakashi with pure, curious eyes. You're okay, sensei, he said cheerfully, as if he'd genuinely been worried. Kakashi's expression wavered. For a split second, he looked as though he recognized something off. Then his gaze flicked to the subdued attackers. Who are they? The masked men lay moaning in pain. Goku shifted his stance. A brief wave of golden ki flickered around his hands. The sight made Kakashi's single visible eye widen. Naruto, what, he started. But Goku didn't get a chance to reply. The brightness around his hands sputtered, and confusion crossed his face. He blinked rapidly. Then, just as quickly as it came, that calm presence vanished. Naruto sagged, eyes returning to their usual annoyed squint. He stumbled, disoriented. What? Naruto mumbled. He saw the two attackers on the ground, saw Sasuke and Sakura gaping. Kakashi stared at him in open curiosity. He swallowed. Did I do that? Sasuke scowled. You tell us. That wasn't you. You moved like a totally different person. Naruto'd his confusion. Don't be stupid, He felt a surge of dizziness. Realizing he might pass out, he took a shaky breath. Kakashi gave him a scrutinizing look, but then turned to the attackers. They're missing Nin from the hidden mist. High level for a C-rank mission. Tazuna, care to explain why you're being targeted by shinobi of this caliber? Tazuna swallowed, wringing his hands. I might have left out some details to get cheaper protection. Sakura snapped. What? Naruto tried to stay conscious, waves of fatigue washing over him. Kakashi tied up the assailants, then confronted Tazuna. It turned out Tazuna was being hunted by a wealthy shipping magnate named Gato, who wanted to keep the land of waves weak. The mission's true rank was probably B or higher. Kakashi exhaled. We can abort. The client lied about the risk. Naruto, furious at Tazuna but even more furious at his own confusion, jumped in. No, we'll finish this mission. I'm not backing out. Sasuke seemed torn, but likewise kept quiet. Sakura stared at Kakashi, waiting for him to decide. Eventually, Kakashi nodded. All right. We'll proceed. But everyone stays on guard. That includes you, Tazuna, no more hiding facts. Tazuna wiped sweat from his brow. Right, sorry, I appreciate it. Campfire. Later that night they set up camp in a small clearing. Kakashi insisted on rotating watch shifts in case more enemies lurked. Naruto sat near the fire, ignoring Tazuna's attempts at conversation. He was busy replaying the fight in his mind, or rather, the pieces he remembered. 1 second, he'd been scared out of his wits. The next, he saw the enemy on the ground. Everyone kept saying he moved like someone else. Sasuke approached with a silent step. You're on first watch, he said. I'll relieve you in a few hours. Naruto pretended not to notice the suspicious glare in Sasuke's eyes. Fine, he muttered, adjusting his headband. He didn't want to talk about what happened. He was still furious that this other persona stepped in and made him look like some puppet. He should have been the one who took down those ninja with full awareness, not lost in a blackout. Sasuke hovered a moment. Whatever happened today, if it happens again, I want to see it clearly. I need to know if it's some trick you're pulling or if you've got more secrets. Naruto forced a smirk. Don't flatter yourself, Sasuke. I don't owe you an explanation. Sasuke's face tightened, but he walked away without further comment. Naruto wondered if he'd made the right move. The last thing he wanted was Sasuke prying into his head. At the same time, a small voice nagged that maybe an ally would help him figure it out faster. He brushed the thought aside. Kakashi lounged against a tree, reading by firelight. Tazuna snored softly on the other side of camp. Sakura was curled up in a sleeping bag, arms around her knees. Naruto walked to the edge of the clearing, scanning the dark forest. Every shadow made him think of more hidden attackers. He breathed in the cool night air, tensing whenever a branch rustled. Yet the real fight going on was inside him. He felt that other presence stirring occasionally, like a half-remembered dream. It seemed excited, as though it wanted to come out and protect everyone. That made him scoff. Since when did he care about protecting people, anyway? Eventually, the hours dragged into the quiet hush of midnight. Kakashi took over watch, letting Naruto get some rest. But Naruto's dreams were restless again. Golden light swam behind his eyelids. A vaguely spiky-haired figure with a wide grin beckoned him. He felt warmth, comfort, an urge to keep training, but also an edge of frustration. Why did it have to steal his spotlight? Next day, country road they traveled without further incident most of the morning, though tension hung in the air. Tazuna apologized multiple times, but Naruto ignored him. Sakura stuck close to Sasuke, glancing around nervously. Kakashi reminded them to stay in formation. Eventually, they reached a broad river. A small boat was waiting under a thick camouflage net. A ferryman gestured for them to approach quietly. Tazuna explained in hushed tones that Gato's men controlled the waterways, so they had to slip in undetected. They piled into the boat, crossing the misty expanse. Naruto peered at the swirling fog. It felt ominous, and his skin prickled with a sense of impending danger. Sasuke's gaze flickered around, searching for threats. Sakura hovered near Tazuna, gripping her pack straps tightly. On the far shore, the boat landed behind a ridge of tall reeds. Tazuna climbed out, thanking the ferryman. Kakashi signaled everyone to stay low. They crept through the reeds toward the main path. The land of waves looked impoverished, with half-finished structures and sad, wilted farmland. People moved about with downcast eyes. Naruto felt a pang of sympathy, though he quickly hardened his expression. No need to get soft. As they neared the incomplete bridge site, Kakashi abruptly halted. Naruto saw him tense, scanning the treetops. Without warning, a massive sword whirled through the air, lodging itself in a trunk just ahead of them. A tall figure in a bandaged mask stood on the blade, arms crossed. Zabuza Momochi. That name meant nothing to Naruto initially, but Kakashi's reaction was immediate. He told everyone to step back. "He's a former Mist Anbu," Kakashi said, pulling his headband up to reveal the Sharingan beneath. "Dangerous." Zabuza's gaze skimmed the group, lingering on Naruto for a fraction of a second. A ghost of a smirk formed behind his bandages. "A bunch of children, and Kakashi of the Sharingan. I expected more from Konoha." Naruto bristled. He hated how casually these enemies dismissed him. "Hey, who are you calling a kid, eyebrow freak?" Sasuke hissed, "Naruto, shut it." But it was too late. Zabuza lifted his blade, ready to strike. Kakashi moved first. The air crackled with tension as he formed hand seals. "Stay behind me," he ordered. "He's on another level." Zabuza hurled himself forward, swinging the massive sword in a sweeping arc. Kakashi blocked with a kunai, the sheer force sending a shockwave that rattled the nearby trees. Sasuke pulled Sakura and Tazuna back. Naruto tried to stand firm, adrenaline spiking. Zabuza twisted his hands into seals, creating a thick mist that swallowed everything in seconds. Naruto's vision blurred. He felt a chill creep into his bones. Kakashi's voice cut through the haze. "He's using the hidden mist jutsu. Stick together." Naruto's heart pounded. Suddenly, a flicker of movement on his right. He jerked, swinging a kunai, but slashed only empty air. Another swirl to his left, still nothing. He felt panic rising. This was no half-baked assassin. Zabuza was a master. Then a shape materialized in front of him, Zabuza's grim silhouette. Naruto gasped, stepping back, preparing to strike. But Zabuza vanished, reappearing behind Tazuna. Sakura screamed. Sasuke flung shuriken. Zabuza batted them aside easily. Naruto's knees trembled. He wanted that power again, that unstoppable force that crushed enemies in an instant. But the fear of blacking out, of not even remembering, made his chest tighten. What if it didn't activate this time? What if it kicked in too late? Kakashi arrived in a flash, engaging Zabuza in a rapid exchange of taijutsu. Their forms blurred, sword clashing against kunai. The clangs echoed through the mist. Zabuza grunted, weaving a sign. Water swirled. Kakashi answered with a water-style ninjutsu of his own, conjuring a swirling current to block Zabuza's wave. The collision drenched the area in spray. Naruto shielded his face, water droplets stinging his eyes. Sasuke stood beside him, tense, ready to jump in if needed. Sakura guarded Tazuna, knuckles white on her kunai handle. The intensity of Kakashi and Zabuza's duel was like nothing Naruto had seen. Kakashi gained a slight upper hand, forcing until Zabuza feigned an opening. Kakashi lunged, and in that moment, Zabuza trapped him in a spherical mass of water, the water prison. Kakashi's eyes widened as his body became immobilized inside the swirling bubble. Zabuza cackled. "One hand to maintain the prison, one hand to kill the brats," Zabuza gloated. Kakashi's voice rang muffled from within. "Run, everyone! You can't fight him at this level." Naruto felt a stab of helplessness. They couldn't just run. Tazuna would be left unprotected. Sasuke crouched, eyes flickering with the same conflict. Zabuza formed a second water clone with his free hand, sending it toward the trio. The clone brandished a smaller blade, eyes predatory. It advanced on Sasuke first. Sasuke launched a volley of shuriken, but the clone weaved around them. Sasuke's expression turned grim. Naruto's breathing grew labored. He didn't know what to do. The water clone would tear them apart. Could they possibly rescue Kakashi? Another thought nagged. Let the presence take over. But that meant losing time. He'd black out, maybe wake up with no memory. Yet if he didn't, they'd lose for sure. His eyes darted to Tazuna and Sakura. They were counting on him. Sasuke was outmatched by that water clone alone, let alone the real Zabuza. Naruto swallowed. Fine. If it means saving my team, I'll do it. He forced himself to relax, to let the wave of dizziness come. The blackness nipped at his consciousness, swirling up from inside. There was that warm voice again, gently urging, let's save them. His vision went dark. When it cleared, Goku gazed out, calm and resolute. He raised his hands, letting that glowing ki pool around his palms. The water clone turned to face him, perplexed. Goku stepped forward, smiling. Hey, let Kakashi-sensei go, he said politely, though his tone held surprising authority. The clone snarled and lunged. Goku sidestepped, lightly placing a palm on the clone's shoulder. A small burst of ki crackled, blowing the water clone apart in a splash. Sasuke gaped. Sakura gasped. Zabuza's real body turned, narrowing his eyes. He tightened his grip on Kakashi's water prison. What sort of trick is this? Goku was still smiling. We're not letting you take our sensei or our client. He pointed both hands forward. A swirling ball of ki formed, illuminating the mist with a golden hue. Zabuza's eyes widened. Even Kakashi, trapped in the water, looked stunned. Before Goku could fire, Zabuza quickly moved the water prison, putting Kakashi's body in the potential line of fire. Try it, brat, and you'll kill your teacher too. Goku's smile faltered. He glanced at Kakashi, who mouthed something from inside the prison. Zabuza used the moment's hesitation to create another water clone, sending it sprinting toward Goku. Goku leapt back, blasting the clone with a quick ki burst, splashing more water. But that gave Zabuza time to reposition. The fight was at a standstill, with Kakashi held hostage. Sasuke cursed under his breath, rushing forward in a desperate attempt to free Kakashi. Zabuza's free arm swung the giant sword. Sasuke barely dodged. Goku tried to launch a small ki orb from the side, but Zabuza interposed Kakashi again. Tension spiked. One wrong move could kill their own sensei. A whistling sound cut through the air. From nowhere, a barrage of senbon needles struck Zabuza's neck. Zabuza's eyes widened in shock. He gasped, releasing the water prison. Kakashi tumbled free, coughing. Zabuza collapsed, blood trickling from the wounds. Everyone turned to see a masked figure perched on a tree branch, wearing hunter nin attire from the hidden mist. The masked ninja bowed slightly. Thank you, I've been tracking him, they said in a quiet voice. Zabuza was a rogue ninja. Now he's dead. Kakashi wiped water from his face, eyeing the masked figure warily. Hunter nin from the mist? They nodded, then swiftly took Zabuza's body and vanished into the fog. The entire encounter ended abruptly. Goku exhaled in relief, letting the ki fade from his hands. Then, with no immediate threat, the dizziness returned. Naruto emerged, staggering forward, confusion twisting his features. What happened? Sakura rushed to support him, eyes wide. Why you did it again, you changed. You blasted that clone. Naruto groaned, his legs trembling. I don't remember. He blinked at Kakashi, who was slumped on the ground, panting. Sensei, are you okay? Kakashi nodded but coughed weakly. I'll be fine. Zabuza's gone, for now. Sasuke approached, face hard. Naruto, you saved us, or whatever that was saved us. You're telling me you really don't remember anything? Naruto tried to form a cocky grin but failed. No idea, sorry. Kakashi watched him silently, then shook his head, too tired to press the issue. We should get Tazuna to safety. This mission isn't over yet. They gathered themselves, each one grappling with leftover adrenaline. Sakura worried over Kakashi's injuries. Sasuke kept throwing Naruto suspicious glances. Naruto himself felt numb. Once again, that second presence took his body and did something amazing, and he was left clueless. It made him furious and relieved in equal measure. Tazuna, sobered by the near-death experience, said quietly, "Thank you for saving me. I'm sorry this turned out so dangerous." They didn't reply. They were all too busy thinking of the days ahead. If Zabuza was truly dead, that was one thing, but if the masked ninja had some ulterior motive, they could face another fight soon. Naruto's gut churned. He wanted to rely on his own power. He wanted to be strong enough to protect his teammates on his own terms. But that kindness inside him, Goku, kept taking over instead, stealing the spotlight. Kakashi finally stood. All right. We'll go to Tazuna's place and let me rest. We have a lot to discuss about what just happened. As they continued, the mist receded behind them. Naruto glimpsed the silhouette of the masked hunter nin far off, slipping through the trees with Zabuza's body. Something told him they'd see that figure again. His heart pounded with a mix of dread and anticipation. If another battle loomed, how many times would this Goku persona save him before everything spiraled out of control? He had no answers, only the echo of that gentle voice in his mind, promising help whenever he couldn't handle it. Naruto tightened his fists, refusing to accept that he'd need it again. He'd figure out how to take that power for himself, or crush it if he had to. End of Chapter 2. Chapter 3. They trudged along in silence through the dreary outskirts of the land of waves, each of them weighed down by the echoes of the battle. Mist clung to the shoreline, lingering like a bad omen. Naruto kept glancing at Kakashi, who struggled forward with one hand pressed to his ribs. Even though the Junin insisted he was fine, his labored breathing said otherwise. Sasuke flanked Tazuna on the right, kunai in hand, ready for any sign of ambush. Sakura followed close to Tazuna's left, eyes wide and watchful. Naruto felt drained. Not physically, his body had recovered quickly enough, but mentally, he was reeling from the knowledge that again, during the fight, he had blacked out and woken up to see enemies defeated. The others called it amazing, but he felt like a spectator in his own life. It infuriated him. He wanted to be the one landing those blows, not some cheerful hitchhiker in his head. No one spoke until Tazuna's modest home came into view. A wooden walkway extended over murky water, leading to a small house on stilts. Night had nearly fallen, the sky bruised purple and gray. When they stepped up to the front, a woman with dark hair stood there, holding open the door. Tazuna mustered a tired smile. "Tsunami, these are our leaf ninja," he said. "They saved my life. Twice, actually." Tsunami's face showed relief, though she looked worried about Kakashi's condition. She welcomed them to rest in a modest living area. A boy peeked from around a corner, large eyes filled with suspicion. He scurried off before Naruto could say hello. They settled Kakashi on a small couch near a flickering lantern. The Junin gave a reassuring eye smile beneath his mask, though it looked weak. "I just need some time," he said. "Zabuza put me through the ringer. My body's still sore from that water prison." Sakura hovered anxiously. "Should we treat your wounds, sensei?" Kakashi waved a hand. "Minor bruises. Don't worry." He looked around at the group. "But I need at least a day or two of rest before I can properly fight. If Zabuza's truly gone, that's good. Yet something about that masked hunter nin was off. It's possible Zabuza isn't dead." Sasuke's eyes narrowed. "How so?" Kakashi rubbed the back of his head, thinking. Hunter nin typically dispose of bodies on the spot, so no secrets can be stolen from the corpse. But that masked ninja took Zabuza's body elsewhere. A needle to the neck could have induced a near-death state. They might be working together. If so, Zabuza might be recovering right now. Sakura paled. "That means we'll have to fight him again?" "Likely," Kakashi said softly. Naruto stiffened at the thought. Another encounter. Another chance for that other presence to butt in and show him up. He forced the dread away, letting anger fill the void. "Good," he muttered. "Let him come. This time, I won't let that freak do all the work." Sasuke slid him a look. "You mean you won't let yourself black out again?" Naruto shot him a glare but said nothing. He was too tired for an argument. Instead, he stood, turning to Tazuna. "Which room can I crash in?" Tsunami answered gently, guiding them down a short hallway to a couple of spare rooms. The living quarters were cramped, so Naruto ended up in a corner of the living area with a single futon. Sakura was offered a spot near Tsunami's own bedroom, while Sasuke took another corner of the main room. Kakashi would remain on the couch, half sitting, half lying. Tsunami served them a simple meal of fish soup and rice. Even though Naruto was hungry, the tension in his stomach kept him from fully enjoying it. As they ate, the boy from earlier peered around the doorway. Tazuna introduced him as Inari, his grandson. Inari said nothing, simply stared at Naruto and the others with wary eyes, then scurried away again. Naruto's brow twitched. "Does that kid have a problem with us?" Tazuna sighed. "He's lost hope. Our land is under Gado's thumb. We can barely fend for ourselves. Inari's father, well, it's a painful story." Sakura's gaze softened. "I'm sorry to hear that." Sasuke stayed silent, finishing his meal quickly. Naruto also didn't press further. He sensed tragedy in the air, something deeper than he had the energy to pry into. They finished dinner, and Kakashi told them they'd train in the morning, lightly, if he could manage to supervise. Tazuna needed to keep working on the bridge, so they'd stand guard there too. Naruto grumbled, but inside, he was determined. The last fight had been a humiliating reminder that he was still naive, still overshadowed by a power not his own. He stretched out on the futon. His mind churned, replaying every second of the confrontation with Zabuza. The swirling water prison. The masked ninja's interruption. The wave of warmth that always preceded his blackouts. The unwavering calm in that presence's voice. It made him feel small. Helpless. He ground his teeth, forcing himself to stay awake, as if that would prevent another dream from haunting him. Eventually, exhaustion took over. He drifted off, vaguely aware of Sasuke shifting across the room and Kakashi's soft breathing on the couch. Morning brought a pale light through the windows. Kakashi was awake already, though he remained seated, nursing a faint limp. Sakura fussed over him, but he waved her away. Sasuke polished his kunai in silence. Naruto rubbed sleep from his eyes, ignoring the tangles in his hair. Tsunami put out a breakfast of boiled eggs and salted fish. Inari still lingered in corners, shooting glances at them. Naruto started to wonder if the kid hated shinobi. Once they'd eaten, Kakashi called everyone outside. They stood by the water's edge behind Tezuna's house. Seabirds circled overhead, letting out shrill cries. Kakashi leaned on a wooden post. We need to prepare for the possibility of another confrontation with Zabuza. I'm not at full strength yet, so you three must improve your skills. Sakura, your chakra control is precise. Sasuke, your speed and technique are strong. Naruto. He trailed off, eyeing Naruto. Your raw power is unusual, but it's also unstable. We need to figure out better control. You've got the Kyuubi sealed in you, which is already a huge chakra source. But there's something else going on. Something that manifests when you black out. Naruto tensed. He hated discussing it in front of everyone. I'll deal with it on my own, he said through clenched teeth. Kakashi sighed. That might not be an option if you want to keep your teammates safe. We can't afford to have you freeze at a critical moment. Naruto's temper flared. What do you know about it, huh? Maybe I'm better off keeping the rest of you out of this. Sasuke's voice cut in, cold. You almost got me killed last time. That water clone would have skewered me if that other side of you hadn't shown up. So don't pretend you're in control. Naruto whirled on him. Shut up, Sasuke. I'm the one who saved your butt in that wave mission before, remember? Sakura stepped forward, hands raised. Hey, enough. We're a team. Kakashi cleared his throat. Stop. Arguing among ourselves won't help. Here's the plan. We'll do a simple chakra training exercise for a few hours. Focus on controlling your flow up and down the body, specifically, tree climbing without using hands. It's the easiest way to sharpen control. That'll help all of you, especially Naruto, to refine your abilities. Sasuke bristled. Tree climbing? That's basic. Kakashi shrugged. Then you should have no problem. Show me. They moved to a line of tall, skinny trees rising near Tezuna's property. Naruto watched with grudging interest as Kakashi demonstrated. He walked up the trunk at an angle, feet sticking to the bark with precisely regulated chakra. Then he hopped down, looking mildly exhausted from the effort. Now you try, Kakashi said, leaning against a post. I'll observe your improvements. If you can master this quickly, you'll have an easier time controlling your powers in a fight. And remember, cutting corners is a bad habit. Master the basics first. Naruto grumbled to himself, but he approached a tree, focusing on gathering chakra in his feet. This was the first step in controlling the Kyuubi's chakra, according to Iruka back at the academy. Yet now, with that second presence lurking in him, the exercise might help reveal something else, too. He took a running start. His first few steps up the trunk felt stable, but then the bark splintered beneath him, and he tumbled back. He cursed, landing hard on his rear. Sakura moved more carefully up a separate trunk, making steady progress. Sasuke stumbled once, then grit his teeth and readjusted his chakra, climbing a bit further each attempt. Naruto's frustration mounted. He tried again, forcing more chakra into his souls. The bark cracked again. He tried less chakra, only to slip. He unleashed a flurry of attempts, each ending in a slip or crash. Nearby, Sasuke was also struggling, but he'd already managed a decent height. Sakura was perched on a branch, not even breaking a sweat. Sakura called out, use a kunai to mark your progress, and try not to overdo it. Naruto ignored the second remark. He whipped out a kunai, scoring a line in the bark where he managed to land before falling. Then he repeated the process. His arms ate shelf, and bruises dotted his legs. But each failure stoked his determination, drowning out any fear of that other presence. Sasuke matched his progress, occasionally glancing at Naruto's marks. It became a silent competition, each of them pushing a little further. Sakura eventually hopped down, having reached the top with relative ease, and stood beside Kakashi, who nodded. "Good job, Sakura. You have the best control among them." She blushed slightly, then fidgeted as she watched Sasuke and Naruto duel with the bark. Naruto's lungs burned, sweat dripping down his temple. He refused to let Sasuke outclimb him. Finally, after yet another slip, he realized brute force wasn't working. He needed a calmer approach. He took a deep breath, remembering the feeling of that warmth inside him. The second voice had told him once, "Relax." He hated relying on it, but the memory of that gentle tone, that easy confidence, nagged at him. "Fine," he muttered. "Just, don't take over. Let me do this." He centered himself, focusing on the swirling chakra in his gut, but trying not to smother it with raw anger. Carefully, he molded a stable amount of energy. Then he placed a foot on the bark, stuck it there, tested the grip. 1 step. 2 steps. Another. He ascended slowly, about halfway up. It was the furthest he'd gotten. He placed a kunai mark. Then, losing focus, he slipped again. But this time, he landed on his feet, not flat on his back. Kakashi observed. "Much better. Keep that up." Sasuke noticed Naruto's progress, intensifying his own efforts. Both of them kept at it until midday. When they finally stopped, they were panting, but they'd improved significantly. Kakashi gathered them by the edge of the house. "This should help you maintain consistent chakra flow, Naruto. As for that other phenomenon, we'll keep our eyes open. For now, let's go with Tazuna to the bridge. Sakura, you stay here to guard the house. Sasuke and Naruto will accompany me." Sakura looked slightly disappointed but nodded. Tazuna beckoned them. "Let's head out. The workers should be at the bridge by now." They marched along the misty path to the incomplete structure. Laborers trudged across scaffolding, hammering nails and carrying lumber. The sight was impressive, an attempt to connect the impoverished land of waves to broader trade routes, hopefully freeing them from Gato's stranglehold. Naruto's eyes scanned the area, half expecting an ambush. Sasuke looked equally tense, gripping a kunai whenever they passed a stack of crates. Kakashi walked slowly, still not fully recovered, but his posture was guarded. Tazuna began directing some workers, and the trio hovered nearby. Hours passed without incident. The workers seemed nervous, but they managed to install more planks and support beams. Naruto found himself bored yet on edge. He tried not to complain, though, wanting to show at least a bit of maturity. Sasuke kept a stoic face, occasionally exchanging cautious glances with Naruto. Near sundown, Kakashi said they should return. "The longer we stay in the open, the more vulnerable we are if Zabuza's alive," he stated. Tazuna agreed, promising he'd join them shortly after discussing final details with his workers. Naruto and Sasuke took point on the path back. Kakashi remained close behind, eye flickering around. The forest canopy rustled with sea winds. It wasn't as thickly misted now, but enough gloom lingered to set Naruto's nerves on edge. They reached Tazuna's house to find Sakura standing outside, looking anxious. She brightened when she saw them. "No problems?" Sasuke shook his head. "None." Sakura sighed in relief. "Good. Tsunami-san's just finishing dinner." Naruto's stomach rumbled. "Yes. I'm starving." They filed inside. The dining area felt warm, lit by a few oil lamps. Tsunami greeted them with a soft smile. She placed bowls of stew on a low table. Inari sat in a corner, staring at them with the same cold eyes as before. Naruto tried to ignore him, focusing on the fragrant stew. Halfway through the meal, Inari spoke up. "Why do you bother?" he asked quietly. Everyone looked at him. Naruto paused mid-bite, blinking in confusion. "Huh?" Inari's voice shook with anger, or maybe sorrow. "You're just gonna die if you fight Gato. He always wins. Heroes are pointless in this world." Naruto's eyes narrowed. "What's with you? That's a pretty dark view for a little kid." Inari glared back. Shinobi are all the same. You think you can fix everything with your skills, but you'll fail. In the end, people who try to be heroes just leave everyone behind. Naruto felt a spark of resentment flare. This brat had no idea what he'd gone through. You don't know anything about me, he snapped. I do what I want. If I want to fight, I'll fight. If I want to protect someone, I will. I'm not giving up just because some jerk with money threatens me. Inari's eyes wavered, and tears formed at the corners. He ran off down the hall. Tsunami sighed. He's lost someone important before. His father figure. It's made him lose faith. Naruto grunted, stirring his stew. He hated seeing that hopeless look in a kid's eyes. Something about it reminded him of his own lonely childhood, how everyone in Konoha glared at him. But he wasn't about to soften up. If Inari wanted to mope, that was his problem. Sasuke finished his meal and rose. Sakura followed suit. Kakashi watched Naruto's expression, but said nothing. They let Tsunami handle Inari, heading off to rest for the evening. The tension in the house felt as thick as the humid air outside. Night draped the land of waves in darkness. Quiet settled over Tezuna's home. Naruto couldn't sleep, so he sneaked out, slipping onto the walkway that overlooked the water. Moonlight glinted off the gently lapping waves. A few frogs croaked in the distance. He leaned on the railing, letting the salty breeze brush his face. His thoughts, as always, spiraled around the second presence. Goku, or whoever. Naruto clenched his fists. The memory of that calm grin, that unstoppable power, burned in his mind. Why couldn't he harness it himself? Why did it always take over whenever he was helpless? A plank creaked behind him. He turned to see Sakura stepping out. She wore a worried expression. Couldn't sleep either? She asked softly. He looked away. Yeah. She approached the railing beside him, gazing over the water. You've been different since we got here. More tense. Even more than usual. He tensed at her observation. What's it to you, Sakura? She sighed. You're my teammate, idiot. I can worry, can't I? He glanced at her, feeling a twinge of guilt. Sorry. I'm just angry at myself. For losing control in that fight with Zabuza. She hesitated. But you saved us. If not for that, other side of you, we might have died. He frowned. That's exactly it. I didn't save anyone. That other side did. I blacked out, like some tool. It's humiliating. He paused, the words surprising even him. I want to be recognized. I want to be the one who does cool stuff, not some cosmic hitchhiker in my body. She studied him, brow furrowed. Kakashi-sensei said you might find a way to control it if you keep training. Naruto forced a bitter laugh. Yeah, but how? That presence is all nice and heroic. It's the total opposite of me. It's like it was born to protect people, while I grew up only looking out for myself. We can't even stand each other. Sakura was silent for a moment, letting the night sounds fill the gap. Then she reached out, resting a hand on his shoulder. I don't know the answer. But, maybe it's not a bad thing to have that side in you. Even if it's separate, it came from somewhere. Maybe it's a piece of who you truly are but were afraid to show. He blinked, caught off guard. You're overthinking it. She pulled her hand away, cheeks reddening. Fine, forget it, but paused. Just try not to push everyone away, okay? Whether it's your teammates, or that other persona, we'll get stronger together. Naruto didn't respond. He watched her go inside, tension coiling in his chest. A little voice in his head told him she was right, that maybe this presence was part of him. But that only fueled his confusion. If Goku was some reflection of Naruto's hidden kindness, why did it feel so foreign? He stayed outside a while longer, letting his mind drift to images of that figure in his dreams. The warm grin, the spiky hair, the unstoppable aura. He swallowed. Maybe he should try to communicate with it somehow. But he pushed that thought aside, returning to the house to catch whatever rest he could. Early dawn. A scream shattered the quiet. Naruto sprang up from his futon, heart pounding. He heard Tsunami yelling. Sasuke and Sakura rushed from their corners, weapons drawn. Kakashi jerked upright, wincing. They dashed into the hallway to find Tsunami trembling at the front door, which stood open. Inari was nowhere to be seen. Two thugs brandishing crude swords stood just beyond the threshold, smirking. Stay back, lady, one thug hissed. We're taking you to Gato. Naruto saw red. He lunged, kunai at the ready. The thugs weren't ninja, just hired muscle. They slashed wildly, but Naruto ducked under a sloppy swing and slammed his fist into the nearest man's gut. The thug crumpled. The other tried to flee, but Sasuke cut him off, delivering a swift kick to the man's ribs. Both collapsed in moments. Tsunami's face was pale. They took Inari. I heard him scream. He ran outside to see what was happening, and they grabbed him, threatened to hurt him if I didn't come. Naruto's eyes blazed. Where'd they go? Tsunami pointed shakily toward the woods behind the house. Kakashi tried to stand, but his injury flared. Damn, he muttered. I can't chase right now. Sasuke gripped his kunai. We have to hurry. Naruto glanced back at Tsunami, memories of Inari's hopeless eyes flashing through his mind. A savage impulse roared inside him. This kid might be a brat, but no one deserved to be kidnapped by scum. I'll go, Naruto said. I can move faster on my own. Sakura, Sasuke, stay here and guard Kakashi-sensei. Sasuke scowled. I can fight. Naruto shook his head. No time to argue. Besides, what if Zabuza attacks Tazuna again while we're both gone? We can't leave them defenseless. He expected a fight, but Sasuke hesitated, mind flicking to Kakashi's condition. Reluctantly, the Uchiha nodded, though he looked far from happy. Fine, but if you're not back soon. I'll handle it, Naruto said. Count on it. He sprinted out the door, following the trampled path through the damp undergrowth. His senses were on high alert, scanning the ground for footprints. The early morning sun cast long shadows, making it hard to see. Still, he caught glimpses of fresh scuff marks on the muddy trail. He moved fast, adrenaline fueling each step. Gato's thugs were no match for him in skill. The only worry was if they had a hostage, they might threaten the kid's life. That thought churned in his gut, fueling his anger. He didn't care if Inari hated ninjas. He wasn't going to let some scumbags abduct him. He followed the trail deeper into the woods. The undergrowth thickened, damp leaves brushing his ankles. Birds scattered as he barreled past. He paused when he heard voices up ahead. Hiding behind a tree, he peered through the foliage. Two men, different from the pair that attacked the house, stood near a clearing, holding Inari at knife point. The kid's eyes were wide, tears streaming down his cheeks. So you want to be a hero too? One thug sneered. Just like your old man. You'll end up like him, you little punk. Inari whimpered but tried to keep a brave face. Stop, let me go. The second thug raised a hand, smacking Inari's head. Shut up or we'll kill your mother too. Naruto felt fury explode in his chest. He stepped out from behind the tree, kunai gleaming. Leave the kid alone. They spun to face him. Inari's eyes darted toward Naruto, shock mixing with relief. One thug brandished a machete. Who the hell are you? Naruto Uzumaki, he snarled. You want a hero? I'll show you one. The first thug charged, machete raised. Naruto flicked a shuriken to disarm him, but the man dodged with surprising agility. A shallow slash nicked Naruto's sleeve. Blood trickled. He hissed and parried with his kunai, sparks flying. These guys were a bit more skilled than the ones at the house. Inari huddled on the ground, hands bound. The second thug yanked him up, pressing a knife to the boy's throat. Take another step, brat, and the kid dies. Naruto froze. He stared at Inari's terrified face, the knife so close to his jugular. Options whirled through his mind. If he rushed in, the thug might cut the kid's throat before Naruto could knock him out. He needed a distraction or a feint. His fists tightened. Got you now, the first thug sneered, raising the machete again. Drop your weapon, or your little friend. A wave of dizziness rocked Naruto. That warmth inside him flared, a gentle nudge, an urging. Let me help. He fought it for a second. Not again. But that second thug's blade glinted near Inari's neck, and panic overwhelmed Naruto's pride. Fine, he told it. Just save the kid. Then everything went black. When the haze cleared, Goku had already taken control, standing in Naruto's stead. His entire posture was different, shoulders relaxed, a faint smile on his lips. He raised his free hand toward the thug who held Inari. Let him go, he said, voice calm but firm. The thug barked a laugh. What are you, some kind of clown? Goku's eyes flicked to Inari, checking the angle. In a blink, he moved, hand lashing out with impossible speed. He grabbed the thug's wrist, a light touch that somehow pried the knife away. The thug's eyes bulged, and Goku twisted gently, sending the man flipping onto his back. The knife clattered to the dirt. Inari tumbled free, gasping. The first thug rushed in with the machete. Goku turned smoothly, intercepting with a palm strike that released a brief flash of ki. It wasn't loud or flashy, but the thug's eyes went wide as a jolt of force launched him backward. He slammed into a tree trunk and slid down, unconscious. Inari scrambled away, hugging his knees. Goku knelt by him, slicing the ropes with a kunai. You okay, buddy? He asked gently. Inari stared, tears filling his eyes again. You saved me. Goku nodded with a bright grin. Of course, it's what we do. Those words hung in the air. Inari's lip quivered. Slowly, his expression shifted to something like awe mixed with guilt. I was wrong. I thought all ninja were heartless or would just leave. But you. Sometimes people need help, Goku said. You can't give up. Inari tried to speak, but only sobs came out. He buried his face in his hands. Goku patted his head awkwardly. Then, the gentle aura faded. Naruto blinked back into awareness, feeling that odd emptiness again. He looked around, saw the two unconscious thugs, the freed Inari, and realized Goku must have done it all, again. He sucked in a breath, ignoring the pang of frustration. At least the boy was safe. He crouched, avoiding eye contact. You all right, kid? Inari sniffled. Yeah. Thank you. I'm sorry for what I said. I was just scared. But you saved me, even though I said those horrible things. Naruto's heart twisted, recalling all the times he wanted someone to save him. He forced a smirk. Don't sweat it. Just, next time, be more careful. Inari wiped his tears. I will. They stood, gazing at the unconscious thugs. Naruto's anger flared again at how easily Goku had handled them, but at least no one died. He stooped to tie them up, ensuring they wouldn't escape. Then toward the house. The boy followed closely, glancing at Naruto with something like respect in his eyes. When they returned, Sasuke and Sakura were on alert at the front door, kunai drawn. Kakashi stood behind them, brow furrowed. Seeing Inari safe, they relaxed. Tsunami rushed forward, hugging her son. Relief filled the small home. Naruto stood apart, arms crossed. Inari looked up at him, managing a small smile. You're a real hero, Naruto. Naruto's chest tightened. He wanted to correct him, say that it wasn't actually him. But he couldn't bring himself to crush the kid's new hope. Maybe that was the worst part of all. That he wanted Inari to believe in him, even though he felt like a fraud. Kakashi caught the troubled look on Naruto's face. He said quietly, well done. Naruto avoided his gaze. Thanks, he mumbled. Tazuna arrived home a short while later, alarmed to hear about the attack, but relieved that Tsunami and Inari were safe. Meanwhile, the rest of the day passed in tense anticipation. Would Zabuza or more mercenaries attack at night? Nothing happened, though. They posted watches in shifts, but the hours ticked by quietly. Tsunami and Inari tried to rest. Kakashi dozed off on the couch, still recovering. When dawn broke again, Tazuna insisted on returning to the bridge, determined to finish. Kakashi, looking slightly better, agreed. He announced that all of Team 7 would come this time, leaving Tsunami and Inari behind thickly barricaded doors. Inari vowed to stay strong, brandishing a small crossbow he'd dug up from the shed. Naruto gave him a nod. The kid's eyes shone with fresh determination, a far cry from the sullen boy they'd first met. That felt good, in a small way, though it also reminded Naruto that Goku was the real hero in that rescue. They made for the bridge under a rising sun. The morning fog clung to the water again, an eerie curtain. Naruto's nerves prickled. He felt sure something would happen today. The air was too tense. Indeed, when they reached the bridge, they found workers unconscious on the ground. A thick mist rolled across the unfinished structure. Kakashi tensed, pulling up his headband to reveal the Sharingan. He's here, he muttered. A pair of shadows emerged from the mist. Zabuza, alive and grim, hefted his massive sword. Beside him stood the masked hunter Nin, the one who claimed to kill Zabuza earlier. The Nin's voice drifted softly. "I'm sorry, but we can't let you finish this bridge." Zabuza's gaze fixed on Kakashi. "We have unfinished business." Kakashi nodded. "So it seems." Naruto's heartbeat thundered. Sasuke readied his kunai. Sakura swallowed nervously, positioning herself to protect Tazuna. Kakashi stepped forward, ignoring his aches, eyes locked on Zabuza. Zabuza lunged, sword swinging in a horizontal arc. Kakashi dodged, parrying with a kunai. The metal clanged, and a pulse of chakra rippled across the bridge. Meanwhile, the masked ninja vanished in a swirl of speed, reappearing near Sasuke and Naruto. Sasuke tried a flurry of shuriken. The masked ninja dodged effortlessly, forming a crystal-like dome of ice mirrors in a blink. Sasuke was yanked inside, and the masked figure's reflection appeared in each mirror. Naruto cursed, recognizing Haku's jutsu from glimpses in the first confrontation. He charged to help Sasuke, only to watch him vanish behind the mirror walls. "Sasuke!" he yelled. "Hang on." Sakura stayed with Tazuna, trembling. "Naruto, what do we do? I can't just leave Tazuna alone, but..." Naruto grit his teeth. "I'll get Sasuke out." He sprinted for the dome, leaping inside before the mirrored ice fully closed. The temperature dropped around him, freezing on contact. He shivered, seeing his breath in white puffs. Sasuke stood at the center, Sharingan awakening in his eyes, scanning the reflections. Haku's voice echoed, impossibly gentle. "I'm sorry, but I can't let you harm Zabuza-san's ambition." Sasuke tensed. "Naruto, we have to find a way out or break these mirrors, now." Naruto nodded. "Right." He formed a few hand seals, summoning chakra, shadow clone jutsu. Dozens of clones appeared, swarming the mirrors, attempting to smash or disrupt them. Shards of ice chipped off, but Haku flitted from reflection to reflection, releasing a barrage of senbon. The clones popped in rapid succession. Sasuke deflected needles with his kunai, but some struck him, drawing blood. Naruto took a few hits too, wincing at the stinging pain in his arms and legs. He looked around desperately, seeing no easy exit. The swirling ice felt like a trap from every angle. If they stayed, they'd be skewered. If they tried to break free, Haku would snipe them from the mirrors. Another wave of senbon rained down, forcing them to duck. Sasuke clenched his teeth. Damn it, he's too fast. Naruto's frustration peaked. He tried again with more clones, but the result was the same. The masked figure moved like a ghost. Naruto's breath came in sharp bursts, panic rising. Sasuke's injuries grew, blood staining the ice beneath their feet. Then that voice stirred inside Naruto again, beckoning. He resisted for a moment, proud anger telling him to do it himself. But Sasuke was about to get killed, pinned down by Haku's relentless assault. A wave of guilt tore through Naruto. He wasn't strong enough. Goku was. Did it matter whose body it was, if Sasuke died? He mentally cursed, letting the dizziness creep in. Fine, do it. He closed his eyes. Everything went black. When it cleared, Goku took over. The tension in Naruto's body vanished, replaced by that easy, almost naive stance. Sasuke noticed the shift immediately, eyes widening at Naruto's softened expression. "What are you?" Goku raised a hand. "Hold on, I'll protect us." A faint golden glow shimmered around his palm. "Stay behind me, Sasuke." A barrage of senbon streaked in. Goku moved faster than Naruto ever had, batting the needles aside with open palms. The slight ki aura deflected them, tinkling across the ice. Sasuke gaped, stepping back. Haku's masked face frowned behind a mirror. Goku locked onto one of the reflections. "You don't have to do this," he called gently. "We can just stop fighting." Haku's voice trembled. "I have to protect Zabuza-san. I owe him everything." "All right," Goku murmured. "Guess we'll do this the hard way." He cupped his hands, golden ki forming between them in a small orb. Sasuke shielded his face from the sudden brightness. Haku's reflections tensed. With a single thrust, Goku released the blast of ki at one mirror. The ice shattered in a thunderous crash, shards spraying like glittering confetti. Haku leapt to another mirror, But Goku's eyes tracked him with uncanny accuracy. Another ki blast tore through the dome. Sasuke seized the opening, hurling shuriken at the now exposed Haku. The Senbon user blocked most of them, but one grazed his shoulder. The mirrored dome weakened. Goku jumped forward, each step crackling with energy. Haku tried a final barrage of needles, but Goku spun in midair, deflecting them. Then he closed the distance, landing a swift strike on Haku's chest, just enough force to knock the masked ninja to the ground. The remaining mirrors collapsed into icy fragments. Goku hovered over the fallen foe, eyes filled with regret rather than malice. Please, just surrender. Haku's mask was cracked, revealing half a delicate face. Tears gleamed. I can't. Zabuza-san is all I have. He raised a trembling hand, more senbon glinting between his fingers. Goku's posture was torn. He didn't want to hurt Haku more, but Sasuke stood behind him, battered, panting. Another volley of needles could kill Sasuke. Goku inhaled, ki swirling around his hand. I'm sorry. Before either could move, a resounding crash came from across the bridge. Zabuza and Kakashi's fight had escalated, a swirling water dragon jutsu clashing against Kakashi's lightning blade. Chakra whirled, sending shockwaves. Hawk alarm. Goku used that split second of distraction. He swung his ki-charged fist, but at the last moment, he veered off, smashing it into the ground beside Haku, cracking the stone. A message that he could have ended it. Haku stared in confusion, tears streaming. Then Haku lurched to his feet and dashed to Zabuza, ignoring the pain. Sasuke sank to his knees, pressing a hand to his bleeding side. Goku turned, kneeling beside him. You all right? Sasuke looked up, struggling to speak. Who are you? Goku's eyes flickered with sadness. Naruto's friend, I guess. Sorry if that's weird. Then the gentle glow faded. Naruto groaned, hands trembling as he reclaimed control. He saw the devastation in the shattered ice, felt the sting of senbon cuts, and realized Goku had saved them again. Across the bridge, Zabuza was pinned by Kakashi's lightning jutsu. Haku, severely injured, tried to intervene. Kakashi's strike pierced Zabuza's chest, the force staggering them both. Blood spilled. Haku, stepping in the way, collapsed as well. Naruto watched, heart-hammering, as the two mist shinobi crumpled onto the battered bridge. Silence, aside from the wind. Kakashi pulled back, breathing heavily. Zabuza lay there, half-conscious. Haku sprawled beside him, that mask broken. The fight was over. Gado's men arrived at the far end of the bridge moments later, mocking Zabuza for failing. In a final act of defiance, Zabuza and Haku turned on Gado's thugs, slicing through them in a suicidal assault. The pair collapsed together, lifeless. Naruto staggered forward, mind reeling. He glimpsed Haku's motionless form and felt a knot twist in his chest. Even though they'd been enemies, Goku had shown mercy. And in the end, Haku and Zabuza died anyway. Sasuke hissed in pain, dragging himself up. Sakura rushed in with Tazuna, tears in her eyes. Kakashi slumped to one knee, exhausted. In a haze, Naruto stepped to Haku's side, noting the emptiness in those eyes that had been so determined. He felt a pang of regret. They were just like him in some ways. Outcasts, living only for someone else's acknowledgement. And they ended like this. He clenched his fists, ignoring the tears threatening to form. Sasuke placed a shaky hand on his shoulder. Naruto didn't speak. The tragedy hung heavily around them. The morning sun broke through the mist, lighting the battered bridge with a sad clarity. By midday, the remaining thugs had fled or been dealt with by Tazuna's men. The workers came out of hiding to see that Gado's reign of terror was effectively over. As the villagers learned that Zabuza and Gado were gone, hope blossomed. They cheered, hugging one another on the half-finished bridge. Kakashi, leaning on a support beam, surveyed the scene with tired relief. We did it. Naruto barely heard him. His mind buzzed with conflicting emotions. Pride, sorrow, confusion. Goku's kindness had spared Haku's life for a moment, but fate took it anyway. Maybe the world really was cruel, no matter what power he wielded. Sasuke gave a small grunt, apparently relieved to still be alive. Sakura approached them both, wiping her eyes. We should go check on Tazuna, she said softly. Naruto nodded, turning away from Haku's still form. They found Tazuna, who was beaming despite tears in his own eyes. "Thank you for everything," he said. "This land can finally rebuild." Kakashi joined them. "We'll stay a few more days to see the bridge's completion and make sure no new threats appear. Then we'll return to the Leaf." Tazuna bowed deeply, gratitude shining. "I won't forget this." They escorted Tazuna back along the bridge, stepping around debris. Naruto glanced at the bloodstains on the stone, feeling a knot in his throat. Life and death, victory and loss, all tangled together. And overshadowing it was that quiet presence inside him, the second soul who always took action when he couldn't. He was thankful for it, and he hated it at the same time. As they reached the far end, villagers lined up, some weeping, others cheering. Inari was among them, running up, bandages on his arms. "You're okay," he cried to Naruto. "I was worried." Naruto patted his head awkwardly. "Yeah, I'm fine." Inari looked up with admiration. "Thank you. You showed me that heroes can exist." Naruto felt a bitter smile tug at his lips. He forced out a, "No problem." The crowd parted, letting them pass. The entire land of waves seemed to breathe a collective sigh of relief. But for Naruto, the weight on his heart grew. He couldn't shake the images of Haku's last moments or the realization that Goku had tried to save him, only for fate to snatch him away. That night, they returned to Tazuna's house. Tsunami and Inari welcomed them like returning champions. But Team 7's mood was subdued. Even Kakashi, usually lighthearted, was quiet. They washed up, ate dinner in near silence, and prepared for bed. Inari told Naruto he'd become a real hero in his eyes, but Naruto had no response. He just offered a faint nod. Much later, while the others slept, Naruto slipped outside again. He stared at the moonlit water, arms hanging at his sides. Finally, he closed his eyes, trying to focus inward. He wanted to see if he could force that presence to speak. For a moment, he felt that swirl of warmth. The same gentle energy. But no words came, just a sense of calm acceptance. As if it was telling him, "We did our best." He opened his eyes with a soft scoff. Did we, though? He wasn't sure if he was talking to the presence or himself. 1,000 questions gnawed at him. Was this new power a blessing or curse? Would it keep stealing his battles? Would it eventually overshadow who he was entirely? He had no answers, only the knowledge that soon they'd go home to Konoha. The mission was nearly done, but the real struggles were just beginning. Orochimaru, the Chunin exams, the watchful eyes of the Leaf Elders. He suspected his strange powers would draw more attention than ever, and he wasn't ready. His fists clenched. "I won't let you take everything from me," he muttered at the silent presence. "If you really are part of me, then fine. But I'm gonna figure out how to control you. I'm not staying a passenger in my own skin." No reply came. The water gently lapped against the stilt foundations, reflecting moonlight. Despite the hush, Naruto felt a faint stirring inside, like a kindly grin, wordless yet reassuring. He looked away, scowling. Maybe he'd figure it out, or maybe it'd break him. But one way or another, Naruto Uzumaki wasn't backing down. End of Chapter 3. Chapter 4. The Land of Waves vanished behind Team 7 as they sailed across the misty expanse on the same rickety ferry that had brought them there. This time, however, the mood was far heavier. While the villagers waved from the shore in gratitude, Tazuna, Tsunami, and Inari among them, Naruto barely lifted his hand to return the gesture. Memories of Haku and Zabuza haunted him. Kakashi, though outwardly calm, wore fatigue on his face. Sasuke stared at the waters, arms crossed, while Sakura fiddled nervously with the hem of her vest. They disembarked on the fire countryside and began the trek home in near silence. A light drizzle turned the dirt road slick, and Kakashi finally spoke only to advise them not to slip. Once or twice, Naruto caught Sasuke or Sakura glancing at him with concern. He knew they had questions about his strange takeovers, but right now, nobody had the will to start that conversation. They reached Konoha's massive wooden gates by dusk. The sight of the village, bustling with lanterns lit in the twilight, usually cheered Naruto, but now he only felt a dull ache. He wanted to collapse on his bed and avoid everyone. But procedures came first. Kakashi led them straight to the Hokage's office to give their mission debrief. Along the way, a few villagers and shinobi recognized Naruto, whispering about how he went off on some big mission. Some cast wary glances, as if they sensed something or did, schooling his expression into the rudest sneer he could manage. Hokage's office, the third Hokage sat behind his desk, pipe in hand, eyes crinkling with relief when he saw Team 7 return alive. "Welcome back," he said. "I take it the mission proved more complicated than we anticipated?" Kakashi gave a wry shrug. "We encountered Zabuza Momochi, a rogue mist ninja, and took him down, but it wasn't without cost." Sakura stared at the floor. Sasuke said nothing. Naruto kept his arms folded over his chest. The Hokage exhaled a thin stream of smoke. "Zabuza, you've done well to come back in one piece." "Barely," Kakashi muttered. He recounted the key details. Gato's corruption, the final clash on the bridge. He glossed over the specifics of Naruto's unusual powers, but the Hokage's gaze slid to Naruto anyway. "I see," the Hokage said softly. "Then the bridge is protected and the land of waves free from Gato's tyranny. That's a huge accomplishment." Naruto's stomach twisted. He didn't feel particularly heroic. Haku's face lingered in his thoughts. "Yeah," he mumbled. "Sure." Sasuke flicked a glance at him, then back at the Hokage. "If the report's over, we'd like to rest." The Hokage nodded, noticing the team's exhaustion. "All right. You're dismissed for now. But I want a full written report by tomorrow, Kakashi." They bowed and shuffled out. Outside in the corridor, Kakashi gave them a quick wave. "Rest up. Meet at the training field in 2 days. I need time to fully recover, and you do too. Don't get into trouble, Naruto." Naruto rolled his eyes. "I'm not a little kid." Sasuke slipped away, heading off in silence. Sakura, torn between them, hesitated. "Naruto, see you in a couple days, I guess." He muttered a non-committal, "Yeah," and left on his own. Naruto's apartment. Night. Naruto trudged inside, kicked the door shut, and stood amid the clutter for a moment. Instant ramen cups and a messy bed greeted him like old friends. He tossed his backpack aside and flopped onto the bed. Exhaustion weighed on him physically and mentally. Sleep hovered at the edges of his mind, but he dreaded the dreams of swirling golden light and that spiky-haired silhouette. He forced himself upright. Maybe he should at least wash off the grime from the journey. He stripped off his jacket, heading for the tiny bathroom. Moments later, lukewarm water ran over his head, carrying away the sweat and bloodstains. He closed his eyes, remembering Haku's final tearful expression. "We don't have to fight," Goku had said, but Haku fought anyway. They all did. Naruto clenched his fist under the water. "I'll control this power," he whispered. "And then, I'll make sure no one else dies like that." He toweled off, realizing how heavy his limbs felt. In no time, he crawled into bed, letting fatigue drag him under. His last conscious thought was a mix of regret and steely determination. Next day, Konoha streets. By late morning, Naruto ventured out to see if any ramen shops were open. His stomach gnawed, reminding him he hadn't eaten since the ferry ride. Despite the gloom clinging to his mind, the lure of Ichiraku ramen was too strong. He strode through the village, ignoring the usual stares. It wasn't like before, though. Some people greeted him politely, acknowledging that he'd come back from a real mission. Others, especially older villagers, still looked uneasy around him. Word must have spread that he possessed abnormal power beyond even the Kyubis. Rumors flew fast in Konoha. At the corner of a busy market street, he bumped into Ino Yamanaka, literally. Her bag of groceries almost spilled. "Hey, watch it," she snapped, then paused. "Oh, Naruto." He bristled. "You're the one who wasn't looking." She narrowed her eyes, then recognized the tension in his face. "You just got back, right? Heard you had a rough mission." "How do you even know that?" He grumbled. Ino shrugged. "It's all over the village. People say you fought some deadly mist ninja." Sakura wouldn't spill details, though. Naruto thought of snapping a rude remark but stopped. Ino was looking at him with genuine curiosity, maybe even concern. "It wasn't fun," he said. "But we did what we had to." An odd silence stretched. Ino opened her mouth as if to say something comforting, but instead, she blurted, "Well, I guess you're tougher than I gave you credit for. Don't get cocky about it, though." She brushed past him, groceries rustling. He snorted. "Right. See you, Ino." She hesitated before walking away, a flicker of uncertainty crossing her features. He chalked it up to typical village gossip. As soon as she was gone, he headed for Ichiraku's. Ichiraku ramen stand. Naruto ducked under the Norin curtain. Tucci beamed, greeting him with the usual warmth. Naruto. Haven't seen you in a while. Heard you were on a big mission. Naruto slid onto a stool. Something like that. One miso ramen, extra toppings. Tucci and Ayame sprang into action, preparing the dish. The savory smell tugged at Naruto's hunger. For a moment, he could almost forget the gloom of the past few days. Halfway through the bowl, a timid voice startled him from behind. "En Naruto-kun?" He turned to see Hinata Hyuga peeking in, fiddling with her fingers. Her pale eyes looked wide with relief. A soft flush on her cheeks. "You're back," she said. I'm glad." Naruto swallowed his mouthful, blinking. Yeah, just got in yesterday." She ventured a shy smile, stepping closer. "I heard the mission was dangerous. Are you okay?" He raised an eyebrow, surprised by her direct concern. "I'm fine," he said gruffly, feeling a small warmth in his chest at her worry. "You don't have to fuss over me." She nodded rapidly, face reddening. "All right, sorry, I just wanted to check." An awkward silence followed. Ayame looked between them, smiling knowingly. Hinata stood there, uncertain whether to sit or leave. Finally, Naruto sighed. "Well, you can sit if you want. I'm not gonna bite." Her expression lit up with relief and she carefully perched on the stool beside him. Tucci asked if she wanted anything. She requested a small bowl of tonkatsu. Naruto turned back to his half-finished ramen, heart thumping weirdly. It wasn't every day someone worried about him so openly. When her order arrived, Hinata sipped quietly at the broth. Occasionally, Naruto noticed her glancing at him as if checking he was truly all right. Usually, he'd find it annoying for someone to hover, but, from her, it felt different. Almost comforting. He cleared his throat. "So, how are things with your team?" "We've just been doing normal D-rank missions," she said softly. "Kurenai-sensei is focusing on training our tracking and stealth. Shino and Kiba are strong, but she trailed off, eyes lowered. Naruto shrugged. "At least you're not just weeding gardens. I got stuck with that forever." Her lips curved in a tiny smile. "True." They finished eating mostly in companionable silence. Naruto paid, surprising even himself by covering Hinata's meal too. She tried to protest, but he dismissed it with a curt, "Just take it." She stuttered a thank you, and they parted ways outside. As she left, Naruto paused, feeling an odd tension in his chest. He couldn't place the emotion. Gratitude? Embarrassment? Either way, her gentle presence lingered in his thoughts longer than he wanted to admit. 2 days later, Training Field 7 Kakashi stood beneath a large tree, arms folded, no book in sight for once. Sasuke and Sakura were already waiting. Naruto arrived last, yawning loudly. "So, are we finally done with resting, sensei?" Kakashi eyed him. "More or less. I feel better now, and I see you're back to your usual cranky self." He turned to the others. "We have a few weeks until something important, the Chunin exams." Sakura blinked. "Chunin exams? Already?" Shred with interest. "So they're coming up soon?" Kakashi nodded. "Yes. The exams test genin from all the hidden villages. Lord Hokage will announce it officially soon, but I'm telling you now so you can prepare. Because of your performance in the wave mission, despite the complications, I believe you're ready to try." Naruto tensed at the memory of that mission. "Yeah, well, bring it on." Sakura looked less certain. "We barely survived out there. Are we really ready for a competition with ninjas from other villages?" Kakashi's expression softened. "Don't underestimate yourselves. But you'll need to train harder than ever. Sasuke, you'll benefit from improving your speed and ninjutsu variety. Sakura, keep focusing on your precise chakra control. Naruto," he paused, meeting Naruto's gaze. "We need to address your situation. Because if you black out in the middle of an exam match, it could be disastrous, no matter how strong that other presence is." Sasuke crossed his arms. "That's assuming it helps him. If it doesn't, he's just another dobe." Naruto glared. "Watch it. I don't need your commentary." Sakura intervened. "Focus, you two." Kakashi sighed. "I've arranged for some additional training, since I'm not specialized in the sort of energy Naruto is manifesting. I asked an old friend to drop by. Naruto's eyebrows shot up. Old friend. A moment later, a lazy, amused voice piped in from behind a bush. And here I thought you'd call me a wise mentor or something. They turned to see a tall, white-haired man in red robes stepping into view. A large scroll was strapped to his back, and a roguish grin curved his lips. Kakashi nodded in greeting. Jiraiya. Naruto blinked. He recognized the name, one of the legendary Sannin, rumored to be a world-class sage, also rumored to be a super perv. Jiraiya swept an appraising gaze over Naruto. So you're the kid with the weird chakra. Kakashi told me you might have more than the fox sealed in that belly of yours. Naruto bristled, fists tightening. Who are you calling weird? Sasuke and Sakura exchanged glances, not entirely sure what to make of this stranger. Kakashi cleared his throat. Jiraiya-sensei, please try to keep it subtle. Subtle? Since when am I subtle? Jiraiya laughed, then turned serious. Anyway, kid, I'm curious about this second presence. Kakashi said you black out, and someone else takes over. Some bright, friendly warrior spirit. That's new to me. But if it's a separate life force, we might handle it similarly to how we handle a tailed beast. Or not. We'll see. Naruto folded his arms, not sure he liked the idea of some random old guy poking around in his mind. So, how's that help me? Because I have a knack for dealing with strange, powerful energies, Jiraiya said simply. If we can figure out how that spirit merges with your chakra, maybe you can stay conscious when it manifests. For a second, Naruto's heart quickened. That was exactly what he wanted. Fine, he muttered. Let's do it. Kakashi waved Sasuke and Sakura over. You two will train with me today. Naruto will train with Jiraiya. Let's regroup in a few hours. Secluded clearing. Afternoon. Jiraiya led Naruto to a quiet spot near a small waterfall. The rush of water muffled outside noise, offering some privacy. Naruto watched the Sannin warily. Jiraiya rummaged in his pockets, eventually pulling out a slip of paper with scribbles. Here's the deal, brat, he began. I want to see how you channel chakra. Show me your clones or something. Let's figure out how your normal flow works. Then we'll try to replicate that warm energy you say you feel before blacking out. Naruto scowled. It's not that simple, but okay. He executed his shadow clone jutsu, producing half a dozen clones. They popped into existence with relative ease, far more solid than his illusions used to be. Jiraiya nodded slowly. Impressive. That's a lot of chakra. And you're not even tapping the fox's energy right now, are you? Naruto wiped sweat from his forehead. No, Kyuubi chakra feels heavier, more intense. This other presence is, well, it's different, almost the opposite. It's warm, gentle. Huh, Jiraiya mused. Try focusing on that feeling, see if you can channel just a speck of it without losing your mind. Naruto closed his eyes. He remembered those fleeting moments of calm, like at the exam, or in the fight with Haku. He tried to approach it gently, not slamming it with anger. Slowly, he felt a ripple of energy in his gut. It glowed inside his mind like a tiny sun. A faint flicker of golden ki sparked around his hand. He cracked an eye open, excitement tingling his nerves. Whoa, I'm not blacked out, he whispered. Jiraiya peered closer. That's definitely not normal chakra. More compact, less fluid, more radiant. Keep it going. But the more Naruto tried to maintain it, the more it wobbled. In a heartbeat, it surged up, threatening to pull him under like a tidal wave. Panic flared. He felt his vision darken. And no, he gasped, not now. He stumbled. Jiraiya lunged forward, pressing a hand to Naruto's forehead. Chakra pulsed in the Sannin's palm, stabilizing him. Naruto's eyes fluttered. He clung to consciousness with desperate effort, pushing the blackness down. Slowly, the dizzy spell receded. He dropped to one knee, breathing hard. The golden flickers vanished from his hand. Jiraiya pulled back, brows knitted. You're definitely on the brink whenever you tap that. If I hadn't interrupted, the spirit might have taken control again. Naruto ground his teeth, furious at his own weakness. I was so close to controlling it, then it tried to swallow me. Jiraiya scratched his chin. It's almost like you have two complete but opposing energies inside you. One is the fox. One is this odd presence. Your own chakra's in the middle, overshadowed by both. If you keep forcing it, you'll pass out every time. Naruto's throat tightened. So what do? We work on synergy. Jiraiya gave a small grin. We find a way to balance your normal chakra with that new energy so it can't surge out of control. Think of it like bridging two streams. The Kyuubi's chakra is one giant raging river. This golden key is another big, if gentler, river, and you're just a small channel in between. We'll have to expand your channel. Naruto didn't fully understand, but he nodded. Fine. Let's do whatever it takes. Jiraiya proceeded to run him through intricate breathing exercises, focusing on slow, steady draws of energy. It felt boring. Naruto itched to throw punches or practice actual jutsu. But each time he tried to be impatient, Jiraiya smacked him lightly on the head and made him start over. Discipline, the Sannin insisted, is the key. That spirit, Goku, you call it? It's unbelievably patient. But you're all hot-headed. If you meet it halfway, maybe you can keep your mind. Hours passed. Gradually, Naruto felt a subtle improvement in sensing that warm ki. He could coax tiny flickers to his fingertips without completely losing control. It never lasted more than a second or two, but it was progress. By the time the sun dipped behind the waterfall, he was exhausted but oddly proud. Jiraiya patted him on the shoulder. Good work for a first day. You didn't pass out or blow up anything. Naruto offered a tired smirk. Barely. Evening, village path. They headed back to meet Kakashi, Sasuke, and Sakura at a small clearing near the village gates. The others had obviously been training too. Sasuke's clothes were singed. Sakura looked sweaty but relieved. Kakashi was explaining something about building up mental stamina to handle illusions. The group reassembled. Jiraiya gave Kakashi a nod. The kid's workable. He has some potential. Kakashi's eyes smiled. Excellent. Naruto stared at Sasuke, noting the scuff marks. Sasuke shrugged. Kakashi tried to kill me with jutsu practice. Naruto snorted. Good. Before they could bicker further, Kakashi said, we'll keep this up for a while. There's still time before the Chunin exams. The official sign-up forms will be distributed soon. Rest well tonight. Sakura gave a slight bow. Right. Sasuke nodded curtly, turning away. Naruto followed suit, though the ache in his muscles was a stark reminder of how far he had to go. Nightfall, Naruto's apartment. He sank onto his bed, limbs trembling from the day's exertion. But for the first time since returning from the wave mission, he felt a spark of optimism. He'd managed to touch that golden key without vanishing into blackness, albeit briefly. Maybe, just maybe, Goku's presence wouldn't always overshadow him. Maybe he could master that strength and still stay himself. He drifted to sleep, mind swirling with half-formed images of training. The spiky-haired silhouette reappeared in his dreams, but this time, it didn't rush him or seize his consciousness. It only hovered, smiling patiently. Following week, training intensifies every day. Naruto met Jiraiya at that secluded waterfall, pushing himself further in the balancing exercises. Some days he barely made progress, while others he managed to hold that ki for several seconds. Jiraiya introduced small additions. Light physical sparring, channeling just a trickle of golden energy into Naruto's punches and kicks. At first, Naruto almost triggered a blackout every time he struck, but with repeated practice, and a few comedic tumbles, he got the hang of starting and stopping the ki flow. He couldn't launch full-blown blasts the way Goku Persona did, but even partial use gave his strikes unusual power. Outside of training, life in the village buzzed with rumors of the upcoming Chunin exams. Streets teemed with foreign shinobi. Sand ninjas, grass ninjas, sound ninjas. Everyone converged on Konoha. Naruto overheard talk of a fierce Gaara from Suna, rumored to have monstrous powers. He smirked at the prospect of testing his budding skills. Meanwhile, the harem element he barely acknowledged began to brew. Ino crossed paths with him occasionally, tossing snarky remarks but lingering a bit too long in conversation. Hinata quietly hovered on the sidelines, offering shy encouragement. Even Sakura, though still caught up in her interest for Sasuke, displayed moments of genuine concern for Naruto's well-being, especially when he'd come back from Jiraiya's sessions with bruises. Naruto, oblivious to deeper romantic signals, mostly responded with curt gratitude or casual rudeness, but deep inside, A glimmer of pride formed that these girls actually gave a damn about him. Konoha Academy Hall, exam registration day at last. The day arrived for formal registration. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura walked into the academy together. The corridors overflowed with genin squads from different villages, all eyeing each other with suspicion or confidence. Naruto's pulse raced. This was the moment they'd show the world what Team 7 could do. They approached the registration desk, a simple booth manned by a chunin. He handed them each a slip to fill in basic details. Name, age, sensei. Sasuke scribbled swiftly, eyes scanning the crowd. Sakura bit her lip, writing carefully. Naruto grabbed a pen, scrawling. Naruto Uzumaki, in messy strokes. Before he could finish, a voice drawled behind him. TCH, move aside, loser. Naruto tensed, turning to see Kiba Inuzuka with Akamaru perched on his head. Shino and Hinata flanked him. Kiba smirked. So you're entering the exams too, huh? Don't expect to breeze through. Naruto glared. I'll do more than breeze. I'll blow you away, dog breath. Kiba snarled, but Shino placed a hand on his shoulder, quieting him. Hinata ducked her head. Let's not fight here. The tension sparked. Sakura quickly pulled Naruto back. Sasuke rolled his eyes at the spectacle, dropping his completed form on the desk. Childish, he muttered. Naruto grumbled but handed in his slip. He felt a flicker of guilt when he noticed Hinata's apologetic look. He shrugged it off, focusing on the important part. Now that the forms were in, there was no going back. Elsewhere, council chambers unbeknownst to Team 7, certain members of Konoha's council had been keeping tabs on Naruto's strange new aura. Word from the Land of Waves mission had spread among the elders, describing how Naruto displayed unprecedented powers, and not just the Kyubis. Some saw it as a threat. Homura and Kaharu, two of the senior advisors, conferred privately with the third Hokage. Lord Hokage, we've heard troubling rumors. Another entity in the boy's body beyond the 9 tails? This could endanger the village. The Hokage frowned. We're monitoring the situation. Kakashi and Jiraiya are working to help Naruto control it. Kaharu's lips thinned. Is that wise? Shouldn't we place him under stricter surveillance? At least until we know more? The Hokage's gaze turned steely. Naruto is a leaf shinobi. Restraining him without cause would only foster resentment. We'll handle this matter carefully, but we will not treat him like a prisoner. Homura sighed. We hope your trust is not misplaced, Lord Hokage. The third Hokage said nothing further, though tension flickered across his features. He couldn't deny that Naruto's new power was an unknown factor. One the village might fear. But he believed in the boy's will. So he let them register for the exams without interference, hoping that the truth would unfold in a more controlled environment. Afternoon, streets of Konoha. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura left the academy after signing up. The crowds of foreign genin buzzed around them, some glaring, some ignoring them. A ripple of excitement coursed through the village. They passed by a group from Sanagakure. A red-haired boy with an eerie aura locked eyes with Naruto momentarily. Naruto felt an almost murderous vibe, like a creeping chill. The boy turned away without a word, following his siblings. Sasuke frowned. That one's dangerous. Naruto bristled, squaring his shoulders. So are we. They reached the gates leading to the main commercial district, where they were supposed to meet Kakashi for last-minute advice. Instead, they ran into Jiraiya leaning against a lamppost, waiting. The Toad Sage waved them over. Change of plans, he said. Kakashi got pulled into a mission briefing. Said to pass on a message. You 3 should rest up. The first part of the exam starts tomorrow morning at the academy. Sakura folded her arms. Do we know what kind of test it is? Jiraiya smirked. It's famously unpredictable. Written tests, illusions, maybe a proctor with a twisted sense of humor. Don't sweat it too much. If you fail, you can always try again next time. Naruto clenched his jaw. We're not failing. Sasuke nodded in silent agreement. Sakura swallowed, determination lighting her eyes. Jiraiya's gaze flicked to Naruto. As for your situation, kid, don't attempt any big stunts in the exam unless you're cornered. You're better off sticking to normal ninjutsu, or mild uses of your new training. Understand? Naruto scowled, but a part of him knew that was the wise call. Yeah, I get it. The sage nodded, slipping off into the crowd. Team 7 exchanged a final glance, then parted ways. Tomorrow, the exam would begin, and everything would change. Night. Naruto's apartment. Naruto lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling. His heart thumped with a mix of nerves and excitement. He'd faced life or death battles in Wave Country, yet the looming Chunin exams still rattled him. Maybe because it wasn't just about survival. It was about proving his worth in front of the entire shinobi world. He turned on his side, recalling Jiraiya's training. He could now spark that golden energy in small bursts, enough to power up a punch or two, enough to deflect a knife. But maintain in lip, and Goku might claim the fight, meaning Naruto would black out again. The thought sent a bitter taste to his mouth. He still burned with the need to be recognized as himself. He'd do whatever it took to avoid overshadowing. At the same time, in the back of his mind, a quiet warmth lingered, like Goku's gentle presence watching over him. The notion unsettled him. He didn't want to rely on it, but maybe it wasn't so bad to know it was there. He shut his eyes, letting his exhaustion pull him under. Tomorrow's test awaited, and with it, a stage that could elevate him, or expose him in ways he wasn't ready for. Dawn. Academy entrance. Dozens of genin gathered outside the academy, many wearing headbands from distant lands. Suna, Otto, Aim, Kusa. Tension crackled in the air. A few older ninja referees directed the groups inside. Naruto spotted Hinata, Kiba, and Shino in one corner. Ino, Choji, and Shikamaru stood in another group. Neji, Tenten, and Lee from Guy's team were also present, Lee tossing Naruto a polite smile and thumbs up. It felt like the entire year's worth of graduates, plus teams from other villages, were jammed here. Sasuke folded his arms, scanning the crowd. Sakura stood close to him, occasionally sneaking looks at Naruto, perhaps to gauge his mood. Naruto took a deep breath. Let's do this. They entered the academy corridors, climbing stairs to the assigned classroom. Already, illusions and pranks were at play. Some older genin tried to trick them into going to the wrong floor. But Naruto, remembering Kakashi's lessons, saw through the illusions. He led Sasuke and Sakura straight to the correct room. At the door, a tall figure with a bandana read their forms, then ushered them in. The classroom was large, tables arranged in neat rows. Naruto counted at least 50 or 60 other entrants. The tension felt suffocating. At the front, a silver-haired ninja with a scar across his face, Ibiki Morino, stood with arms behind his back. His gaze swept the newcomers like a hawk eyeing prey. Take your seats, he barked. The written portion of the Chunin exams is about to begin. Naruto's stomach knotted. A written test. That was his worst nightmare. He slowly moved to an empty seat near Sasuke. Sakura gave him an encouraging nod, though worry creased her brow. Ibiki loomed at the front. Rules will be explained shortly. Until then, keep your mouths shut. Naruto swallowed. He could handle a fight, but an exam of the mind. He stole a glance at Sasuke, who looked determined, and Sakura, who seemed anxious but prepared. He forced himself to calm down. You've been in worse spots, he reminded himself. If you can handle missing Nin from the mist, you can handle a dumb test. Yet a creeping doubt lingered. If the test was some fiendish trick, or if he lost control, he shoved the thought away. One step at a time. Ibiki slammed a set of papers onto the podium. We'll begin now, he announced. Naruto inhaled slowly, bracing himself. The rest of the room fell silent, each shinobi's fate balancing on a handful of questions, and beyond that, the lethal trial that awaited in later stages. This was only the start of a grueling challenge that would push them all to their limits, especially Naruto, whose secrets threatened to explode at any moment. He gripped his pencil. I won't let anything overshadow me now. The exam began. End of Chapter 4. Chapter 5. Tension settled over the large classroom as Ibiki Morino's voice echoed across the rows of genin. Naruto pressed his pencil to the exam sheet, scanning the complex questions that blurred in front of his eyes. Kanji terms he barely recognized stared back at him. Specific jutsu theories, historical ninja data, advanced chakra physics. He grimaced. Written tests are the worst, he thought, glancing to his left. Sasuke sat there, silent, reading question after question with a controlled expression. He flicked his gaze across the page, occasionally jotting down a terse answer. On Naruto's right, Sakura diligently filled in answers, her brow furrowed but her hand swift, as though she knew most of the material. Naruto's heart pounded. I can't do half of these questions. Near the front, Ibiki paced back and forth, watchful eyes sweeping for any sign of cheating. Proctors were stationed around the room. If they caught you cheating more than a certain number of times, your entire team would fail. Naruto gripped his pencil tighter. He'd studied a bit, but these questions went way beyond his reading. He peeked at the page again. Analyze the underlying principle behind advanced elemental recomposition. List the cyclical advantages of two conflicting chakra natures. He dropped his head to the desk. Are they serious? Suddenly, snickers drew his attention. Some foreign genin from the hidden sound were whispering, pointing at the questions with grim amusement. Naruto's pride flared. He couldn't get shown up like this. He had to think. Focus, Naruto. Glimpsing movement from the corner of his eye, he noticed Hinata a few rows over. She looked at him, saw his distress, and subtly shifted her exam sheet to an angle where he might see some answers. Her cheeks flamed red as she tried to help. A pang of embarrassment and warmth hit him. Hinata, she's risking a lot, but if he got caught, both teams could be disqualified. He shook his head quickly, mouthing, no thanks, but no. Hinata retracted her paper, though concern swirled in her pale eyes. Naruto forced himself to refocus. If he was going to pass, maybe he could glean the trick behind this test. The questions are basically impossible unless you have advanced knowledge, so maybe they want us to cheat intelligently. He discreetly surveyed the other teams. Many used cunning methods, mirrors, reflection from headbands, mini-wire communications. Even Sasuke was using his Sharingan to copy pencil movements from a brainy genin up front. Sakura, presumably, needed no such trick, she was actually solving them. Naruto's pride screamed not to be the lone idiot, but he had no fancy technique to steal answers without being spotted. Just as panic crept up, Ibiki's voice thundered, time for the 10th question, and a special rule. The scratch of pencils ceased. Everyone looked up. Ibiki cracked a grim smile. Here's how it goes. You can choose to attempt this final question, or not. If you choose not to, your score on this test remains whatever you have, and you can try the Chunin exams next year. But if you do take it and fail, you and your entire team can never attempt the Chunin exams again. A cold hush cloaked the room. Gasps arose. Several genin panicked, hands trembling. Some stood up, unwilling to risk their future on a single question. Sasuke's eyes narrowed. Sakura glanced at Naruto in alarm. We can't, she tried to telegraph with her eyes. If you get it wrong. Naruto's heartbeat thudded in his ears. The fear of failing forever gnawed at him, but something inside, the same defiant stubbornness that carried him all his life, refused to bow. His fists clenched. One by one, genin trickled out, their teams following. Desks emptied. Ibiki gave them a final chance to leave. At last, Naruto slammed his hand on the desk, jumping up. Don't underestimate me, he roared. I'm not running away. Even if I stay a genin forever, I'm not quitting now. Gasps spread among the remaining teams. Naruto glared at the proctors, at Ibiki, at anyone who doubted him. He refused to let fear overshadow his dream. Ibiki paused, a faint curve on his lips. All right, then. Everyone who stayed passes the first exam. Congratulations. A wave of confusion and relief rippled through the classroom. Ibiki explained that the real point of the test was to measure information gathering under pressure, plus the will to face unknown challenges. Surviving this mental trial proved they had the guts for the next stage. Cheers and exhausted laughter echoed. Naruto nearly collapsed in his seat. I can't believe that was it. But Beforia's smoke bomb detonated at the front. A loud, high-pitched voice shrieked, "Don't celebrate yet, you sorry excuses for shinobi." As the smoke cleared, a purple-haired kunoichi in a mesh top stood on the proctor's table. I'm Enko Mitarashi, proctor for the second exam. Meet me at training ground 44 in half an hour, or you fail. The stunned genin scrambled to gather their gear. Ibiki snorted quietly at Enko's dramatics. Naruto found himself yanked along by Sakura. Sasuke followed with a smirk that said he was more intrigued than intimidated. The Forest of Death, a towering chain-link fence encircled a vast, dense woodland. Vines and thick foliage hid the interior from view. Sharp winds whistled. Teams from all over the world had arrived, forming a rough semicircle around Anko, who waved her arms for attention. "All right, babies, listen up," Anko barked. "The second exam is survival-based. Each team gets one scroll. Heaven or Earth. You must traverse this forest, reach the tower in the center, and end up with both a Heaven and Earth scroll. That means you'll have to fight other teams to collect their scroll. But watch out, poisonous creatures, tricky terrain, and your fellow shinobi are all threats." A hush fell. Many teams exchanged nervous glances. Naruto tried to mask his own dread. He remembered Kakashi's warning. The Forest of Death was infamous for lethal accidents. Anko grinned sadistically. "Sign these waivers. People can and will die in here. If you're not ready, walk away now." Naruto scrawled his name, adrenaline pounding. No way he'd back off. Sasuke and Sakura followed suit. They received an Earth scroll. On the flip side of the field, random teams got Heaven scrolls. The gates opened. "The exam lasts 5 days, Anko said. Begin." Teams poured into the forest from multiple entry gates. The heavy doors slammed shut behind them. Darkness enclosed Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura as they jogged over twisted roots and massive shrubs. The stench of wet earth filled the air. "Stay alert," Sasuke warned. "Any team could ambush us." Sakura gripped her kunai. "We need a Heaven scroll, but we don't know who has it. Maybe we should hide first." Naruto frowned. "Hide? That's not my style." But before they could argue, a kunai whistled past, nicking Sakura's sleeve. They whirled around to see a trio from the hidden rain up in the trees. One of them smirked. "Hand over your scroll." Sasuke cursed, yanking out shuriken. "Spread out." An explosive flurry of blades and taijutsu erupted. Naruto ducked behind a trunk, ignoring the pounding in his chest. If these guys were as skilled as they seemed, he couldn't afford to hold back. But if he let Goku take over, he might black out. He formed a quick shadow clone, sending it around to flank. Sasuke engaged the Rain Genin in a mid-branch scuffle, exchanging furious strikes. Sakura launched a barrage of kunai from below. The Rain Nin used coordinated tactics. One pinned Sasuke, another leapt at Sakura, the third spotted Naruto's clone. Naruto clashed with the nearest attacker, trading hits. The Rain Genin twisted, unleashing a hidden blade from his sleeve. The lethal slash grazed Naruto's arm. Pain flared. "Calm down, I can handle this without losing control." He forced himself to breathe, calling up just a flicker of that golden key at his fingertips. For an instant, a faint glow enveloped his hand. He slammed a punch into the attacker's ribs. The man gasped, hurled back into a thorny bush. "What the?" the Rain Nin managed, stunned by the force. Sasuke, seeing the opening, dispatched his own opponent with a flurry of kicks and a well-placed fireball jutsu. The final Rain Genin tried to retreat, but Sakura threw a precisely aimed kunai, grazing his leg. He stumbled, allowing Sasuke to finish him off with a ruthless chop. They collapsed to the forest floor, the fight over in seconds. Naruto blinked sweat out of his eyes, adrenaline blazing. He'd tapped that key for just a moment, and hadn't blacked out. A rush of triumph welled in him. Sasuke rummaged the unconscious trio's packs. "No scroll. They've got an Earth scroll too." Sakura exhaled. "So that was pointless. We can't waste time on random fights," Sasuke muttered, stepping away from the battered Rain Nin. "Let's move." They pressed deeper. Enormous trees towered overhead, their canopies blotting out the sun hours blurred in a haze of cautious trekking, hidden traps, and distant screeches of unknown creatures. Once, they glimpsed Shikamaru's team hurrying past. Another time, Kiba's team raced by with Akamaru barking. Tension built with every step. Sakura's nerves frayed. Sasuke kept scanning for illusions. Naruto tried to watch their flanks. The forest stank of danger. Then, as dusk approached, the wind changed. A chilling presence brushed against Naruto's senses. Sasuke froze. Something's not right. A swirl of leaves parted to reveal a tall figure in a strange grass headband. Pale, slit-like eyes flicked between them. Naruto's stomach twisted. He recognized a vile aura, similar to how he felt around the demon fox, but more cunning. This was Orochimaru. Of course, Naruto didn't know the name in that moment, but the figure's smirk, the too long tongue, the dark, oppressive chakra made cold sweat bead on Naruto's neck. Sasuke stepped forward. "Who are you?" The grass ninja laughed, a low, unsettling sound. "Just a fellow exam participant." Their host of illusions struck without warning. The entire forest seemed to warp. A monstrous gust of wind battered them. Sakura's scream cut the air, and Sasuke crashed into a nearby trunk. Naruto skidded across the ground, dizzy. The grass nin hovered above them, eyes gleaming. "Let's see how you handle real fear." Naruto's vision blurred. A part of him howled to let Goku take over, but another part refused. "No, I can handle." A blast of killer intent slammed his mind like a physical blow. He nearly lost consciousness, so strong. Sasuke trembled, reaching for a kunai with shaky fingers. The grass nin yawned, unimpressed. Then, in a flicker of motion, they singled out Sasuke. A vile grin stretched. "You have interesting eyes, boy. Give them to me." Naruto roared, launching forward with clones. But the grass nin's reaction was instantaneous. A savage wave of wind jutsu tore the clones apart. Naruto was flung back, smashing into a fallen log. Pain flared in his ribs. He coughed, struggling to rise. Sakura cowered, wide-eyed. Sasuke twitched with helpless fury. The grass nin advanced, snake-like. A swirling blackness teased the edge of Naruto's awareness. Goku's voice, quietly insistent. "Let me help, let me protect them." Naruto's pride rebelled, but seeing Sasuke pinned under the figure's foot, seeing Sakura paralyzed with terror, he had no choice. "Fine," he thought bitterly. "Just don't let me vanish for too long." He closed his eyes. The blackness swallowed him. When they reopened, Goku stared out. Naruto's body posture relaxed, expression warm but resolute. The grass nin paused, sensing a sudden shift. "Oh, what's this?" Goku sized them up. "Stop hurting my friends," he said gently, voice lacking Naruto's usual brashness. A golden aura flickered around Goku's arms. The grass nin sniffed the air, interest peaked. "Fascinating. Another power within the Kyuubi's vessel?" Goku offered no explanation. He simply stepped forward, blurring with unexpected speed. His fist connected with the grass nin's chest. The enemy's eyes widened as they were blasted back through the underbrush. Tree branches snapped. "That force," the grass nin coughed, pulling themselves upright. They licked their lips, excitement dancing in their eyes. "Such raw energy. But you're not the fox." Goku said nothing, raising his palms. A small sphere of ki formed between them, crackling with light. Sasuke, from the ground, stared in disbelief. "And Naruto?" The grass nin whipped through hand seals, conjuring a S from their sleeves. Fanged mouths lunged at Goku. He fired the ki blast, incinerating serpents in a brilliant flash. Smoke billowed, leaves fluttered. "Not bad," the grass nin muttered, reappearing behind Goku with supernatural speed. A kunai slashed, intending to carve into the base of his neck. But Goku swiveled just in time, crossing his forearms, golden sparks dancing to repel the blow. They exchanged a flurry of moves. Orochimaru, still disguised as a grass nin, recognized how bizarrely pure this power felt. Like a gentle flame that burned just as hot. Goku's strikes rattled the air. He was clearly holding back, uncertain how far to go. The grass nin, on the other hand, was cunning and deadly, well beyond typical genin skill. One slip was all it took. The grass nin's neck stretched unnaturally, mouth opening wide. Fangs bit into Goku's shoulder. Poisonous chakra seeped in. Goku gasped, stumbling. "Ah!" From the ground, Sasuke forced himself to stand, seeing Naruto's body in danger. "No." Kyuubi's malicious chakra flared inside Naruto in response to the bite, colliding with Goku's gentler ki. The combined forces tore through his system violently. Goku's eyes widened in alarm. Too many energies at once, can't maintain. His aura flickered. The grass nin laughed. "You're interesting, but not unstoppable." With a vicious push, they hurled Goku's body aside. He crashed into a tree, slumping down. Sasuke tried to intervene, launching shuriken, but the grass nin batted them aside. Sakura, trembling, could only watch helplessly. A swirl of shadow overcame Goku's gaze. Naruto regained consciousness in a haze of pain, confused. What happened? He tasted blood. The grass nin loomed, forming more bizarre seals. You'll make a fine vessel someday, the enemy purred, fixating now on Sasuke. In a horrifying move, they forced Sasuke's collar aside and sank fangs into his neck, imprinting the cursed seal. Sasuke screamed, collapsing. No! Sakura shrieked, rushing to her teammate. Naruto forced himself upright, stumbling, mind spinning. The grass nin flicked their gaze to him. We'll meet again, Naruto Uzumaki, and your other power. Then, they vanished, the sinister presence fading like a nightmare. Silence returned, broken only by Sasuke's ragged breaths and the rustle of leaves. Naruto limped to Sasuke's side. Sakura looked up with tears in her eyes. He's burning up. I don't know what that freak did. Naruto's vision swam. Pain pulsed where the grass nin had attacked him. The Kyuubi stirred resentfully. Goku's ki lingered in tatters. It felt like a storm raged inside him. Sakura, he mumbled, trying to focus, we have to get out of here. She gulped, blinking tears away. Can you stand? He nodded, ignoring the agonizing throb in his shoulder. Together, they lifted Sasuke. The forest shadows pressed in, danger lurking. They found a hollow under a massive tree root and set Sasuke down. Sakura prepared a few medical supplies, though she was only trained in basics. Night came. Sasuke moaned in delirium, the cursed mark throbbing. Naruto fought waves of dizziness. He felt Goku stir, as if trying to soothe him, but everything hurt. Sakura stood guard, fear etched on her face. 2 days later. Reprieve and danger they remained hidden, half-starved, while Sasuke battled the fever. Occasionally, they heard other teams passing by. Once or twice, someone tried to ambush them, but Naruto managed a low-level shadow clone defense. He dared not tap deeply into Goku's ki. He was too injured, too uncertain. By the end of the second day, Sasuke finally stirred, breath ragged. A dark mark coiled around his neck. He sat up with an eerie calm. Sakura rushed over. Sasuke-kun. You're awake. He looked at her, confusion shadowing his eyes, then turned to Naruto. The energy around him felt different, almost sinister. What happened? Naruto explained, voice shaking with fury. That grass weirdo bit you. They called themselves Orochimaru, then they left. Sasuke stood. His expression twisted between rage and shame. I was powerless. A hush fell. Naruto forced a small grin, trying to lighten the gloom. Hey, we survived. We can still find a heaven scroll, right? Sakura's lip trembled. Sasuke, are you sure you can move? That mark? He cut her off. I'm fine, he snapped. We have 2 days left to reach the tower with both scrolls. We only have an earth scroll. So let's find someone with heaven. Naruto frowned at his cold tone but didn't argue. They packed up, forced themselves onward. Showdown in the tower. A day passed in an excruciating cycle of small skirmishes, near escapes, and anxious searching for a heaven scroll. Eventually, they clashed with the sound team, who boasted freakish sonic attacks. The pitched battle tested them to the limit. Sasuke's curse mark flared, granting him vicious strength. Naruto felt a pang of alarm. This is not normal. But they prevailed. Sakura's cunning illusions disrupted the sound nin's hearing. Naruto hammered one with a ki-boosted punch, still careful not to black out, and Sasuke, half consumed by the curse mark, cornered their leader. The result? They seized a heaven scroll from the battered sound team. Days of exhaustion weighed on them as they stumbled to the tower. Many teams had already arrived or failed. In the grand hall, proctors tallied scrolls. When Team 7 presented both heaven and earth, the officials nodded, letting them pass through a set of doors. Inside, Enko awaited with an appraising look. Made it, huh? Sasuke said nothing, leaning against a wall. Naruto huffed. Yeah, took long enough. We're half dead. Sakura just exhaled in relief. They joined the squads who survived, crowding a wide chamber. Gaara's sand team was there, looking unscathed. Shino's team too, calm and collected. Team 10, Ino, Choji, Shikamaru, slumped against a pillar, exhausted. At the front stood the Hokage himself, along with exam officials. He praised those who survived the second stage. But, he announced, too many have passed. We must hold preliminary matches to reduce the number of finalists. Groans and murmurs spread. Some teams exchanged uneasy glances. Sasuke clenched his fists, that odd mark still faintly visible. Naruto's heart pounded. Prelim fights, right here, right now. Hayate Gecko, the sickly-looking proctor, stepped forward, coughing. If anyone wishes to forfeit due to injuries, speak now. A few did. The rest stayed. The large monitor overhead blinked names at random for the first match. Naruto scanned for his name, adrenaline spiking. Come on, come on. Sasuke Uchiha vs Yoroi Ikado. Sasuke grimaced. Naruto and Sakura exchanged worried looks. If Sasuke unleashed that curse mark again, it might ruin him, or draw suspicion from the proctors. Yet Sasuke marched down to the arena floor, ignoring the pain in his body. The fight began. Yoroi's technique drained chakra on contact, forcing Sasuke to fight carefully. Every strike sapped his stamina. Naruto winced, seeing Sasuke weaken. Come on, jerk, you can do this. Yoroi launched a final grapple, aiming to suck Sasuke's last dregs of chakra. But Sasuke tapped that mark's power, just enough to unleash a new variation of his lion combo, pummeling Yoroi unconscious. The crowd stared, half impressed, half disturbed by that ominous aura flickering around Sasuke. He staggered back upstairs, ignoring the examiner's suspicious glances. Naruto slapped his shoulder, trying to grin. Nice job, man. Sasuke only nodded, sweat rolling down his temples. Kakashi appeared suddenly, telling Sasuke he needed immediate treatment to seal that curse mark. The two left in a hurry. Naruto's gaze returned to the board. Fights progressed rapidly. Zaku vs Shino, Tenten vs Temari, Ino vs Sakura, which ended in a double KO. The tension escalated with each round. Finally, the screen revealed Naruto Uzumaki vs Kiba Inuzuka. Kiba smirked from across the waiting for this, Naruto. Akamaru barked in agreement. Naruto huffed, jumping down to the arena floor. I can handle Kiba. But I gotta watch out, if I slip up, Goku might barge in. Hayate signaled them to start. Kiba lunged with impressive speed, Akamaru transforming into a clone. They attacked in tandem, coming at Naruto from two sides with fang-like strikes. Naruto formed a cluster of shadow clones, weaving between the swirling attacks. A savage elbow from Kiba dispelled half the clones. Naruto fell back, focusing on controlling a small flicker of ki. He let it flow just enough to amplify his reflexes. Kiba noticed Naruto's sudden boost in speed, eyes widening. What? Naruto ducked under a fang slash, hammered Kiba's gut with a glowing fist. Kiba sprawled across the floor. Akamaru leapt in, but Naruto's next punch, imbued with a spark of golden ki, sent the dog-turned clone rolling. Gritting his teeth, Kiba used his all-fours jutsu, attacking from multiple angles, but Naruto unleashed a cunning feint with a shadow clone double and blindsided Kiba with an uppercut. The collision rattled the arena. Kiba collapsed, groaning. Hayate counted him out. Cheers broke from the stands. Naruto exhaled, ecstatic he hadn't blacked out. He'd used Goku's energy in small bursts, just enough for an edge. With that victory, he advanced. Kiba was carried away by medics. Hinata peered over the railing, relief shining in her eyes. Naruto waved, feeling an odd warmth at her concern. One step closer. The matches continued. Gaara decimated Lee in a brutal showdown. The sight of Gaara's sand crush made Naruto's stomach churn. Meanwhile, Hinata fought against Neji, and the heartbreak of her defeat rippled through the arena. Naruto bristled at Neji's cruel remarks. I'll pay him back if I get the chance. At last, only a handful of victors stood. The prelims ended. The final stage would begin a month later, giving them time to train. Naruto, battered but triumphant, joined the finalists. Sasuke, Gaara, Shino, Kankuro, Temari, Neji, Shikamaru. They awaited the drawing of matchups for the final tournament. Lord Hokage addressed them all, praising their efforts. The finals will be a stage for your villages. Train well. The eyes of the shinobi world will be upon you. Naruto clenched his fists in excitement and fear. This is it. A chance to prove myself in front of everyone. Me, not Goku. Sasuke brooded nearby, weighed by the curse mark. Sakura, eliminated, still hovered to support them. Hinata nursed injuries from Neji's fight, but she gave Naruto a fragile smile of encouragement as the exam concluded. 1 month. Epilogue to a new beginning. In the days that followed, the finalists dispersed to train. Orochimaru's threat loomed, though few were aware of his infiltration. Kakashi devoted special sessions to Sasuke's cursed seal. Jiraiya resumed Naruto's training with even more urgency, helping him refine the synergy between his own chakra and Goku's ki. Naruto's harem scenario simmered on the sidelines, Sakura showing pockets of deeper concern for him despite her attachment to Sasuke, Hinata offering quiet moral support, and even Ino occasionally popping up with an odd mix of banter and curiosity. Naruto, oblivious to the complexity, focused on one goal, overshadowing all doubt at the finals. During a late-night training session, Naruto once again teetered on the edge of a blackout as he tried to channel a larger ki attack. Jiraiya steadied him, scolding him for pushing too hard too fast, but in the back of Naruto's mind, he heard Goku's gentle laugh, as though cheering him on. A short distance away, Konoha's council members watched from the shadows. They murmured about the precarious balance of Naruto's power. He was either a shining beacon or a ticking bomb. The third Hokage insisted on trust. Meanwhile, Orochimaru schemed, preparing an invasion, lusting after Sasuke's Sharingan and musing about Naruto's Saiyan-like potential. The pieces were in motion. When Naruto finally collapsed onto his bed after another grueling day of training, he stared at the ceiling, exhaustion flooding his muscles. The finals were only weeks away. I'm gonna show them all, he vowed, that I, Naruto Uzumaki, am more than just a Jinchuriki or some weird second soul. His eyelids drooped. As sleep claimed him, the presence of Goku hovered in his mind, not taking over, but existing side by side, resonating with unspoken solidarity. A quiet pact formed between them. Maybe, just maybe, they could learn to coexist without either overshadowing the other. And so, the final stage of the Chunin exams loomed, a crucible where Naruto's journey, his bond with Goku, and his fight for recognition would collide in explosive form. The entire shinobi world would soon witness a brash, rude ninja whose body housed not just a demon fox, but the spirit of a Saiyan warrior. The storm of destiny gathered, waiting for the day it would break. End of Chapter 5 to be continued.